Grace and peace, family. Grace and peace tonight. Hope y'all are doing well. Shabbat Shalom. It's that time again. It's that time to rest again. How many of y'all need some rest? Y'all knows I do. Oh, my. This has been quite a week with preparations, with Passover feast. I've been enjoying talking to my brothers and my sisters who have been doing it up this Passover. I mean, they just been going all in, you know what I'm saying? They just been embracing the beauty of the feast, and it's been amazing. If you celebrated Passover already, put a 1 in the chat. And did you enjoy it? Okay? Did you enjoy it? This is year 3 for my family and I having Passover feast. And every year, our aim is to just get better and better with what it is that Yah has commanded. And oftentimes, I think when we think of the word command, it's like there's this stiffness to it, right? Like, you better do this. No, sometimes the Most High is commanding us to do something for our own good, right? Well, always for our own good, of course, but our enjoyment, our rest. When you think about the first Passover, it was about freedom. And now the celebration of Passover is once again looking forward to that freedom as the Most High Yahuwah prepares his people before he gathers us from the 4 corners of the earth. So if you celebrated Passover, I see a couple of 1s in the chat. All right. Praise Yah. I hope that your Passover was enjoyable. For those of you who didn't celebrate, I understand that you're maybe not in that part of the journey yet. No condemnation, right? Because we're all still learning. We're all still in that place where we're learning what it is that the Most High requires of us. But we had a great time. We enjoyed ourselves. We cooked, we laughed, we listened to music. After we had our dinner, we spent some time in the Word as a family, learning about the patriarchs, all over again, instructing the children. It was blessed. It was absolutely blessed. So I'm so excited about what the Most High is doing in his people, but I'm also excited because tomorrow is Shabbat. We get to take a day off. Yay! I need a day off. Yay! If you need a day off, I know you can feel me on that. But family, we got a lot of stuff we're going to be talking about tonight, particularly surrounding our relationships. Y'all know what we're going to be discussing. We're going to be talking about Black men who do not divest. This is a conversation that is much needed among Yasharel. Y'all know, excuse me, that there's a lot of conversation when it comes to the issue of divesting. And I saw this incredible interview that I'm going to be doing a response to. But what I'm going to do with this video is I'm going to give you the opportunity to join in on the conversation. This is going to be a panel discussion. Okay, so I'm going to put the link out there in a little bit. I'm going to put the link out there and we are going to talk it up. Those of you who want to join in, who want to add to the conversation, you can. Here are the rules. Okay, I want to put this out here real quick before I move on. Here are the rules. 1, you must be Black. Okay, AKA you must be an Israelite. You can be a man or a woman, but you must be Black. No conversation, no opinions by anyone other than those who are directly in the community. Okay. 2, when I put you in the back, I need you to put your camera on. I can see you. Put your camera on, and then you can cut it off if you want to after that. That's fine. But I at least need to see your face once. All right. So if you can follow those rules, unless I know you, right? Like if I know you, you know, you got your bonnet on, you in your robe, you know, but you know me and you, we cool, we know each other. That's different. But if like this is your first time and you want to be a part of the conversation and I don't really know you, do me a favor and put your camera on. I will send you a private message in the private chat if you want to get on, if you don't know me and I don't know you. So with that in mind, we're going to get started in just a minute. But before we do, family, last week last week, I was sitting down and I was thinking about how to coordinate a design in my children's room and in their space because I've been designing their rooms lately. And I said, I want to have something that is going to speak to the Most High's word to them directly on a daily basis. And I couldn't find anything. So I said, you know what? How about I put together myself a a series of pictures displaying the Ten Commandments for children. And so I did. And as I was going through it, I thought, maybe the family would also appreciate this for their homes. So I reached out to y'all in the community tab with some of my designs, and overwhelmingly, many of you responded that yes, you love the design, you love the idea. So as of today, I released what the designs will look like, and I'm going to show them right here, right now. This is Yah's Big 10 Commands, okay? So I want to show you all that this is, if you're interested in getting what it is that you can expect. Now, they will not come framed. They will come as a PNG regular picture file, not a file, excuse me. They're going to come as a print, and it's going to be like a dull glossy print. And this is just to give you an idea of what it would look like if it is framed in your home. So Yah's Big 10 Commands, number 1, put Yah first. Number 2, no graven images. Number 3, don't take Yah's name in vain. They're designs that are made to appeal to our youth, okay? To appeal to them in their senses. They want something that speaks to them. Number 4, remember Shabbat, keep it holy. Number 5, honor your parents. Number 6, do not kill. And I'm hoping that you can kind of get a feel for what it would look like in your home. And also, number 7, 8, 9, and 10. Mr. and Mrs. don't cheat. Number 8, don't steal. Number 9, don't tell lies. And number 10, don't covet. So if you like these designs, if you like what it is that you're seeing, do me a favor. I'm going to have all of the information after this live pinned in the comment section. Do me a favor and just put Big 10 set of 1. Now, if you want more than one, feel free to let me know in the comment section. That way I can gauge the interest of all of you and how much I should look to be ordering. So that is what I've got going on. And before we get started, family, I'm going to say hi to y'all because I love you so much and I'm so grateful for y'all. Brother Donnell, peace and blessings to you as always. Thank you for coming up and showing up. Sister Carolina, shalom. Brother Chris Hayes, peace and blessings to you. Mama Mariah in the building, peace and blessings to you as well. Omayah, Shabbat Shalom, peace and blessings. Timothy Davis, peace and blessings to you as well. Angie Love, Yah, Shabbat Shalom, sis. Good to have you in the building. My bro, Second Exodus up in the building. Peace and blessings to you. Kavia, Shalom, Shalom, chosen Hebrew, Shalom, peace and blessings to you. All right, we got Diamond Love in the building. So glad to have you here, sis. Just Reese, peace and blessings to you. Vincent Rollins in the building. The Breakthrough Wives Club, peace and blessings to you. My brother Floyd Spears, peace and blessings. Got my sister Nia Zeki in the building. This journey, peace and blessings to y'all. I'm trying to go through and make sure I try to hit up as many of y'all as possible. I appreciate y'all coming out. We got Caribbean Princess, peace and blessings to you. Hot Water Cornbread says he celebrated Passover. Awesome. Praise Yahuwah for that. All right. Who else do we have? And Brew Queen, get those thumbs up. That's right. Y'all get those thumbs up in the building. Peace and blessings to you, my sister. Don P up in the building. Peace and blessings to you, my brother. Sister Joy, peace and blessings in pursuit. Glad to have you here. All right. Family, we're getting ready to get started. Brother Vincent Rollins, thank you so much for becoming a new member. Shout out to my patrons and my members. I appreciate y'all love, y'all support. Y'all know that Ashanda at Home is much more of an intimate setting where we just get down to the nitty-gritties of our interpersonal relationships as Hebrew people. And I let y'all come in on my life a little bit. So anyway, thank y'all so much for supporting on a monthly basis. Couldn't do this without you. Peace and blessings as always to my sister Ruama in the building. All right. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put this link out here. Like I said, we're going to have a discussion tonight. So if y'all ready to talk, we're going to talk. All right. I have two videos that I'm going to be sharing. The first one is just a short. And the reason why I'm going to show you this short, okay, is because we need to understand just how much filth, okay, has come into our community, not even by our own hands. Okay, a lot of this stuff has been inherited through chattel slavery. And one of the videos I'm going to show you is the reason why we have to have these conversations. Now, if you've ever heard of the term, knocked up before, if you've ever heard of the term knocked up before, do me a favor and put a 1 in the chat if you've heard that term knocked up. If you haven't, put a 2 in the chat. Knocked up. All right, I see you in the back, real second Exodus. Do me a favor and put your camera on for just a second. All right, we got some ones. All right, so we are familiar with the term knocked up. Okay, I'm going to show y'all a video real quick, and I'm going to show you the roots of that. And then once you put your camera on real second Exodus, I'm going to let you in the building so you can join in on the conversation. Y'all take a listen to this.
Because see, I ain't gonna lie, I didn't know this, but at this point, I'm not shocked. The phrase knocked up originated with U.S. slavery and traces its origins back to at least 1813, according to the Oxford Dictionary. But since
Family, can you hear me? Give me a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. Give me a 1 in the chat. Ugh! I'm telling you, I have to keep going through this. It just shut down. I bought this computer a year and a half ago, and the computer is breaking down on me. But, you know, that's the way all these machines are made today. Don't even let me get into all of the appliances, okay? That's a whole nother conversation, okay? Because here we have so many power outages. I just need y'all to understand how this works here. We have a ton of power outages. So when the power cuts back on, it cuts on with such force that it breaks down all of our equipment, our computers, our appliances. I just had to purchase a new stove because I'm telling y'all, living away, there are some things that y'all just need to understand, especially for those of y'all who want to leave the US, understand that a lot of places, they have a lot of power outages. So those power outages tend to just break up our equipment. So my bad. Thank y'all so much for coming and showing up tonight. I got 2 folks in the building. We're going to have such an amazing conversation. Y'all just pray this thing don't shut off again. Okay. So I got this video that I was going to show you, and I'm going to show it to you again. Okay. But hopefully with no hiccup time. Okay. So let's take a look at the video. All right. Let me put it back on here. Let me get that audio, and then I'll invite you, my brothers. I'll invite y'all to come on in.
The phrase knocked up originated with U.S. slavery and traces its origins back to at least 1813, according to the Oxford Dictionary. But since it was added to the Oxford Dictionary in 1813, that means it was used as a colloquialism even before then, because words or phrases that aren't deemed proper or standard English must first gain popularity in our culture first, and then the dictionary will adopt them later. See, back then, the price of an enslaved African woman was knocked up by the auctioneer when she was pregnant. This was promoted as a deal for buyers. They looked at our Black woman, our queens, as a buy one, get one free special. We have to remember, as Resma Menakem puts, it wasn't viewed as though Black women were giving birth to life. It was as if they were producing another product for capital. Did you know this? Because, see, I ain't going.
Now, family, that is 100. You know, I was today years old when I learned that. I had no idea. But so much the stuff that we as a people have, come into adopt, it came from that system. It came from that era, that time. And we just say these things and we don't even realize that we're speaking the language of our oppressors. It's very shocking. It is it's very shocking. And so this is why we're going to have this conversation tonight, because so much of what we have going on right now, it comes from the same system, right? But we label it as the quote unquote gender wars, right? We label it as our people quote unquote divesting. But we don't understand that the same people that brought these institutions, these labels, the same people that brought them are the ones that are literally behind the scenes controlling that narrative again. Y'all were talking about some lady by the name of Pearly Things in the manosphere, and it came out that she was a total bigot. So these are things we need to understand as to why it is that we have to be able to take control of our own narrative. And so tonight we're going to have this conversation. I want to welcome in my brother Floyd in the building. Peace and blessings, my bro. How you doing?
I'm blessed today. Shalom to you and your fam.
Oh, good to see you. Shalom to you as well. And love to my dear sister Sherry as well. And I'm also going to invite my bro Second Exodus up in the building. Oh, I didn't know it was you, bro. I didn't know. You had like a different kind of name on there. So what's going on, brother?
What's going on, big sis? Yeah, I had to create 2 accounts because Berean blocked one of them.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's to be expected with that person. The name that shall not be named.
Oh yeah, forget.
All right. Well, I'm glad to have you both into the conversation. There is a little bit of feedback, so we're going to have to kind of mute a little bit between our conversation so that we don't draw that feedback on the live. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up the video because this is a very interesting conversation. And sisters, feel free to join in this conversation. We want to be a very respectful, offering both of our opinions based on what we see, what we've gone through as a people, and hopefully it'll be a very productive conversation. So let me go ahead and get this video prepped to share, and then we start.
So, brothers, the very first question is, why was it so important to only date Black women?
For me, I love myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I had just come to the conclusion one day, just, when you think about the society as a whole, when you love yourself, you want to be with someone that mirrors yourself. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And you want your children to reflect you, and not just internally or culturally and psychologically, but even physically. I love the way I look, when I look in the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
And so for me to have seeds that look like me, I should be with a woman that looks like me, and I actually love it. It's not like, it's not just principle, but it's also something that, means a lot to me. That,
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's why it was important for me to be with a Black woman. But on top of that, my mother gave me a good example of what a Black woman is,
Mm-hmm.
and so, recognizing that example, I'm not tainted with any, crazy ideas of what Black women are. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I see how certain ideas can be pushed, and then, I can compare that with my mom and say, it doesn't really
Doesn't match up.
fit. So, really my mom is like, the best example of Black womanhood I've ever seen. And so, I base my decisions on that.
I like that, because a lot of Black people specifically have mommy issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually heard that I might be moving ahead of it, but I've actually heard Black men say that it's one of the reasons why they don't want to date Black women anymore, because of what they've seen their mom do, or how she acted and how she portrayed. So that's really good. That's very interesting and really good to hear.
Okay.
Any one of you want to answer?
Yeah. It is a form of like self-realization. You know what I'm saying? You kind of realize that, Black women are ultimate other half. Like it's like just the other half of what you are. You know what I'm saying? Like, and just everything else. It's just even like the social connections we have, just the way Black women look, you know what I mean? Like they really compliment us. You know what I mean? If you really think about it, like, just the essence of Black women, the way like, there's a certain energy that they give off,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean, that you're not going to get from nobody else. Like nothing is like a Black woman, like period. You know what I mean? So, whatever issues that I have went through, it's just never going to really affect it to the point where I'm like, oh, no, Black woman, it's ridiculous. And to me, you know what I mean? Because, you may have some bad experiences, but ultimately your best experience is going to be what, the other half of yourself. It's the female half of us.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's just all that, just like the social and then the dynamic and the, just Black women just look, it's the epitome of beauty. You know what I mean? And, so that's pretty much my aspect on it.
Okay.
For me personally, it had a lot to do with a couple of things. For one, what he said, loving yourself. Just put yourself in a position where you're in a relationship with somebody else. They can never fully relate to everything that you deal with.
Okay.
You know what I mean? When you go out there and just use the typical, the police pulls you over,
Mm-hmm.
or they can't feel the same way you feel, because these things are not common
Right.
with them.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so there was that aspect. And then, I have people in my family that are mixed, and there's always this identity crisis thing going on. They don't know exactly where they fit or where they belong. And like, for instance, I have cousins that are half Mexican, half Black,
Mm-hmm.
and they're darker. So their Mexican family is looking at them like, you're only Black.
Oh,
So
I
they
see.
have to deal with all of these different things. I never wanted to raise my children with these type of issues on top of the issues that we already deal with.
Right.
So there's that aspect. And then, to be honest with you, I'm with him on the black women are the epitome of they are what beauty is.
Okay.
To me. So
all right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good.
All right, my brothers, I'm going to bring you in on the conversation now. And I'm actually glad that it's two brothers on the panel first before any of my sisters get on. They to me, I'm a woman and all, but I appreciate all the love hearing these brothers stand up for us as sisters and speak the truth about how society sees us. What is your perspective regarding this idea of Black women and their image before the culture? What are your thoughts? I know, Floyd, that you're married. Second Exodus, I don't believe that you're married, but I want to hear from Floyd first, who is married, and then I want to get it from the perspective of someone who is not in that realm just yet.
Well, shalom. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share. It's an honor for me to even talk about the whole union of a Black man, a Negro man, and a Negro woman, because it is an extension of the blueprint, it's an extension of the design. So I could continue and add to whatever I've heard already, but the bottom line of it is that the Black woman, the Negro, she has the Eve gene, and you can't get any closer to the pattern than to be united with another Negro Hebrew woman. So I'm honored to have seen that example in my family growing up so often. And to me, it was never a thought to even go outside of that, because you can't do any better than that. If you have the closest to the pattern that you can probably get, why would you mess with it? So there's a lot of things that, as it's been said before by the other speakers that shared in the video, there's things that we commonly understand. They don't have to be explained. They don't have to be identified, because there's an empathy, there's an understanding, there's an identification that makes it easier to walk through these things, because you already know someone can walk through that with you without you having to explain the intricate details of it. So it's an honor to be connected to the pattern and to continue to perpetuate the pattern in a positive way.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, what would you say to people who, particularly on this point, because this was one of the things that had, stood out to me when the gentleman talked about how his Black mother was his representation of what a Black woman was, and made, just like you said, made him, want to be with his own people. What do you say when you have brothers who are talking about Black mothers in a negative light, making it appear as though Black mothers are the reason why there's so much problems in the Black community? What are your thoughts about that?
I think a lot of it has to be with just a lack of recognition for the dysfunction that has plagued us, and not looking past the emotions, the words, the treatment, and all these things that they see as a surface, and not digging to the deeper issues of it, because we all have wounds and we have to be able to look past those wounds. The mom who did not get along with the son, she had wounds. Those wounds probably came at the hands of her husband or boyfriend or the father of her children. We have to look past those in order to understand the deeper issue of what's going on in these relationships. So we tend to not put in the work to begin to understand one another's sufferings. We criticize one another's sufferings, because all we see is the product, the byproduct of those wounds. And none of us are perfect, so we should not expect perfection. We should be helping each other toward perfection.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your perspective, and especially as someone who's more seasoned. I love the perspective that you gave. But I want to hear from Second Exodus, because you're in this environment as a young man, who has not necessarily had the experience yet of raising a family of your own, as far as I know. What is your perspective when it comes to this issue of Black women versus any other group of women pertaining to being in a relationship with a Black man?
Oh, great point. Thanks for having me, Big Sis, on your platform. As a single man, well, I'm 35. I turn 36 next month. So I've been in dating on and off since I was 18. and there, to be honest, the dynamic between single black men and, especially if you're coming from an educated background, if you don't really give off a swag or anything like that, I could do it, but it just, I wouldn't be true to myself. And I notice I get a lot of our Hebrew women putting on that facade, if that makes sense. But that's not, I don't think it's necessarily healthy per se. Maybe because it's not genuine to me. So right now, as a matter of fact, I go on a date tomorrow.
Oh, you going on a date tomorrow? Okay.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, I'm excited. And you know what I'm going to do? We're going to go to the park. I met her at the YMCA. She's a Hebrew lady. She probably doesn't know it yet, so maybe I'll, if she doesn't know it, I'll educate her. I know. I wouldn't do it too soon because I'm not trying to run her off. But we're going to go to the park and we're going to go jogging and something nice and not expensive. And right now in my position, like I'm going through seminary school. I'm going through the military. I'm a chiropractor, but I'm working on passing my board exam. So I'm kind of looking for somebody that will be with me, that will work with me, and as I'm growing and hopefully, I just feel like there's hope. I really do. I feel like there's an awakening of the Black family at this moment. Like there's an awakening of a relationship. We're talking about it. We're discussing it with each other. The communication is opening.
Beautiful. Now you say that she don't know who she is as of yet. Would you or could you say that when you woke up to who we truly are, that had a bearing on how you felt about your people? Or would you say that, no, it's been pretty much the same before I knew I was and after? What are your thoughts?
Oh, most definitely. Like, okay, so a real short story. When I was around like 7 or 8 years old, my dad went to Ghana back in the 90s. I think it was 1992 or somewhere around there. He as soon as he got off the plane, there was a tall, dark-skinned man wearing a breastplate. And he said he was from the tribe of Judah. And so when my dad came back to the States, he told me that. And my goal was to find out if it was true or not. So all these years, I've been reading the Bible without the internet, by the way, because internet really got popular around 3rd grade, which I was around 9 years old. And so ever since then, I didn't have a positive outlook because I hate to say it, but Black girls would say I speak white or talk white. They would kind of pick on me. They kind of liked the dudes in the classroom that, had the quote unquote swag or had the Nikes or the Jordans, whereas I was wearing Filas or something. so
You wearing Bobos though. You was
the strap-ons, So as I got older, and it was really around 2011 that the internet started putting out information about Igbos and Ethiopian Jews. And I thought it was more so of a conversion, but it was really around 2015 that the camps really got a lot of popularity on the internet. And then I started seeing my own people and doing more research and seeing like, oh, we could be Israelites. That did change my outlook on how I saw my own women, because at that point, I was in college. I was around a lot of people from different backgrounds, and I started falling into the trap of these women are more feminine over here. I could start dating these Asians and white ladies and stuff like that. And I didn't have an issue dating them. Like they would choose, but then as I learned more about the curses of Deuteronomy 28 and all the other stuff that we had to deal with, I had more compassion for the struggle. And I said, I'm not really trying to fix brokenness, but I understand it. And my heart has more compassion for the situation. So I'm willing, nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. So, and I have a deep desire for being with my own women. So that really helped. like increase my love and commitment to my own people, to my own women.
That is amazing. I love it. I love what I'm hearing. All right, we're going to continue on watching the video, and then I will get your opinions in a few minutes.
All right, brother. So the next question is, try to keep it PG. Try to keep it PG as much as possible. What turns you on about a Black woman? That's why I said keep it PG as much.
Everything. Yeah, really. The way they look, the way they move. Really, that's the main thing that gets me.
How we move?
They just move differently. You know, sometimes you can't describe it. You know, I just see a Black woman and I just be like, I can't even, you're telling me to keep it PG, but it's just like the way they move differently. I mean, I interact with a lot of different people every day. You understand what I'm saying? But there's a visceral reaction. There's a reaction there that I don't have with other people. You know? So, that's one of the things. But they're really unique. Black women are just unique. They're different. They look different. They talk different. They smell different. They move different. And I know how other people smell because I have to deal with them in the workplace. It's true. I mean, they come leaning over you, asking you, "Oh, well, can you edit this and this and that?" I'm like, man, can you just like, yeah, real talk. So, it's just it's a whole different vibe that Black women have, and so, they're just beautiful to me.
Okay, Rand, what turns you on about a Black woman?
Well,
Come on, you should say something.
Listen,
if it's too bad, I'll edit it out.
Okay. There's a very distinct, like I was talking about the essence earlier that Black women have, like, and just like there's even with different way that Black women touch you, just certain things that they understand about Black men. You know what I mean? And just, all the different types of Black women, the features, everything, just like, it's indescribable to a great extent. You know what I mean? Besides the fact that, of course you got most sisters with certain types of body frames and whatnot. You know what I mean? But just like at the end of the day, like, just like, they just got it. They got that thing that is just it's just that powerful, that other half of your power that makes you go, wow, like it really just enhances you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's like, just when you, especially you find when y'all got that same, like, understanding, sorry, what's the word I'm looking for? Just with conversation or personality where y'all really got that that just quadruples it. You know what I mean? Where you're like, wow, now really, like, it's just like everything else is now coming into play. It just comes in full circle 360. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's just,
Well, for me, it's the way they walk, the way they talk, the way they dance. Every aspect of a Black woman, and I think most of all the mental aspect. But I can't get that from anybody else because they're not going to understand me. They don't understand music the way I understand music. They don't understand my struggle the way other people will understand it or try to understand it because they never can, because they never meet. And just back to what we said before, I love myself. So
okay,
I'm gonna love everything about that.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's important too. Obviously, intellectually, psychologically, like you said, there's a relation there. You know what I mean? There's a commonality there that doesn't exist anywhere else. So even after initial attraction, which is physical attraction, there's more to it. But even with the physical, like I said, it's something that draws you, to Black women. Even non-Black men, they already know what's up.
Yeah.
You see that all the time, so
it's like this energy.
Right. The difference
the way
is
you
I see it. You understand what I'm saying? I see this. Whatever it is that they think they see, I see it.
Yeah, we see double time. It's automatic.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Double time.
Exactly.
It's like here and there. You was just there. It's here and there for us.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Well,
Okay, so my next question is going to be along the lines of what she asked, but what I would like to know, and we can start again with Floyd, is when it comes to distinctions between us as a Hebrew women and the other nations, what are some of the things that you've observed, whether it be through your wife, your mom, your siblings, your sisters, your aunties? What are some of the distinctions that you've observed?
One of the things that I have seen just in general with women is how they project themselves. And I think a lot of it comes out of either a confidence or a lack of confidence. And it's so frustrating to me to see our beautiful Hebrew women thinking like they have to do something else to portray that beauty. Because to me, they're beautiful all by themselves. One of the things that really attracted me to my wife, other than her beautiful physical features, is her beautiful smile, and she's got some killer dimples. I mean, I see those things, and it doesn't matter what I have, if I've done something, got in trouble or whatnot, or if I'm angry with her. We can have conversations, and she breaks me down with that smile. And sometimes she smiles when she's angry with me, and I don't really know what to do with that other than just to sit there until the spell wears off, so to speak. But the distinction is how can I say this? The dynamic spectrum of beauty in the physical sense. I'm not talking about the physical features, although that's part of it, but the spectrum of colors is just so beautiful. And you can't necessarily say that you see it played out so dramatically in any other people group but Hebrew women. And so it's a beautiful thing. And so I completely understand why there are so many other people groups that are envious of Black women. They talk about how big their lips are, yet they want to get them. Talk about how big their upper breasts are, but they try to mimic that. They try to do everything that they hate so much in us. And so the one thing I think that our Black women don't realize the beauty in is their own hair. And I understand very clearly that there's a lot of pushback about women wearing their own natural hair. It's an issue when they actually have to have some legislation called the Crown Act to protect our right to wear our hair in a natural way, because that's what we have. That's what the Most High gave us. But it's this whole idea of having to do something else or something different. My wife, bless her heart, she understood that I didn't like her wearing makeup because I love the color and the tone of her skin. And to this very day, I love the glow of her skin color untouched. So there's a lot of things that we have had to deal with the negative respective to our looks that have always been a virtue, always been a benefit. And we see that because we see it imitated so much in the culture.
Yeah, that's some amazing points that you're making in terms of the imitation. But then there's always this other issue when it comes to Black men who want to say, you know what, I only want my women, right? I only want my women because they move different. They understand me. They listen to the same things I listen to. They understand what I've been through because they've been through it. And then you'll have other nationalities, other groups will say, well, white women are beautiful too. Asian women are beautiful too. Blah, blah, this and that. And as a Black man, how does that make you feel when you have other groups constantly trying to make themselves fit into our conversations concerning our relationships?
Well, if I understand you right, I do know, and I'll agree that there are other women that are beautiful. As a man, I think because we are stimulated by our eye gates, we can see it. We've learned how to see and appreciate it. And so I'm not going to sit here and say that other people groups or nationality of women are not beautiful, because they are. But there is something, I don't know, I think it's probably chemically, it's a lot of different dynamics all rolled into one that make the Black woman special. So it's hard for me to put anyone above, because she is the crowning achievement to me. And not just my words, this is what the book says. He made Adam, and then out of Adam he made Eve.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's amazing. I love your thoughts on there. Let me get your thoughts second next to this, especially now that you're going on your date tomorrow. I mean, obviously, she appealed to you. What made her appeal to you? What separates this woman, this Hebrew woman, and not just specifically the young lady that you may be going out with tomorrow, but what separates in your mind the distinction between her and the other nations?
Oh, easily. Just knowing that she is going to be kind of like equally yoked, or she kind of understands what me as a young African American has to deal with in this country. I don't have to explain myself. That's one less thing I have to explain. um, just to know that she also goes through the same thing, and she has brothers or fathers or uncles or loved ones that's gone through the same thing, and she already gets it. And 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 the second thing is just her energy. Like, she had this like really nice feminine energy. Um, she just, that's, I really like that. Like, and I think that like when the curses are lifted off of our people, we would see we'll start flourishing in our roles. We'll start seeing our men being more masculine and our women being more feminine.
Well, see, now you brought up a point. See, because we're going to have to talk about this, because everything that's being said is beautiful and is necessary, is absolutely necessary. But we know that in the culture says different when it comes to Black women in particular. More than any other demographic of women, we are told that we have a masculine energy. So in terms of that, and I want y'all to keep it 100, have you observed more of a masculine energy in Hebrew women than in other nationalities? We got crickets. We got crickets.
I was gonna let Floyd go first.
I would say that there is not. I think it's in a way of how women carry themselves. Black women are very talented, and I think they know they're talented. They're very gifted in a lot of ways, and so they carry that. They exude that, and it is so intimidating to other people groups, and they can't help but shrink back. And I think the frustration of having to take a back seat to someone on a regular basis, it breeds a lot of jealousy, breeds a lot of envy. But I think that there is something about a Black woman, a Hebrew woman, that is threatening to anyone else. And sometimes it's threatening to men, Black men. So I think all of this just has more to do with the aura that she carries. And she should not be penalized for having that aura. Sure, she has to, just like we all do, have to control our aura, control our special powers, if I can say that. And once you learn, I think about these little superhero children, they don't know the power that they have, and they tend to overdo it so often. As a woman grows into who she is, she doesn't have to flaunt those special values, those special powers, those special virtues. She just needs to be who she's supposed to be. And there is nothing more magnetic than that. But it has to be, I guess, harnessed, understood, and controlled, because people are threatened or triggered just by your very presence. And I think the fact that women, Hebrew women, have so much of this quality wrapped up in their being, that their presence is threatening to so many other people, especially in the workplace. And that's why they get this unfair moniker that they are loud or aggressive. No, they're just extremely confident. And I think a lot of it has to do with a defense mechanism, because they don't want to be marginalized. So they tend to project a little bit more, but it's still not aggressive. It's just standing forth and owning your ground.
Right. That makes a lot of sense, because, me personally, I was raised by, especially during my teenage years, I was raised by a very, very strong grandfather. And these were like, the teenage years are the most formidable years of, a child's life. And one of the things that my grandfather used to always tell me was, Shani, he used to call me Shani. He said, Shani, never let them see you sweat. Right. And his whole thing is I have to be built strong to deal with a very tough world. And I can't fall back on just being, soft on a pillow, because the world will take advantage of that softness. And so I learned that I had to be tough. I learned that I had to be strong. But, Brother Floyd, you're one of my members, and one of the times just recently in the last couple of weeks, I shared about that whole idea of being a strong Black woman, right? And I said, I'm not that. I don't want to be that anymore. I don't want to be this strong Black woman that has to hold the world on my shoulders, right? Because I want to be able to rest in my femininity. But we have so many problems with this idea of resting in femininity because culture has given us this mindset that we, particularly as Hebrew women, we don't have a right to ask to be feminine, but at the same time, we get criticized for being masculine. If a white woman says, you know what, I want to stay home, I want to take care of the children, I want to relax, and that, you know, that flow as just being a woman, then all of a sudden it's okay. But if a Hebrew woman does it, then it's like, hold on a second, you're lazy, you don't want to contribute, what do you bring to the table? So it's all these mixed messages that we're getting as a people. And this is why I want to have these conversations, because, you know, I feel like being able to, you know, have an honest dialogue about the messages that the culture is putting out there for us, even the messages that we've internalized that our parents have taught us, have caused us as women to be a lot harder than we actually want to be. What say you, Brother Floyd or Second Exodus? Feel free to contribute.
You made a very good point about what the society and culture forces us to do. This was so heavy on my dad, is that he actually raised my sister to the point to where she was very strong-willed, very opinionated, very aggressive, and it served her well a lot of the time, but it also created problems for her. But it's a shame that this has to be a part of the training, and it's a defense mechanism that it's probably necessary to have and tone down than to not have it all. I think it's important for us to understand that each and every one of us has walked through a certain path that has been a rocky one. And so we should not penalize our women or our men because of that. I think it's such a disconnect in our own culture, because we tend to hold each other's disposition against them when we're a product of our circumstances and their shared circumstances. And there should not be a vice, but more of a virtue, because in spite of all that, we're still here and we're still doing what we do in spite of all the things that have happened. So I don't want to ramble on with that, but I do know that it's important for us to take what we have and use it as a virtue and still be a blessing in spite of all the things that are against us, because that shows how strong we actually are. And that's another point that people find threatening.
Very, very powerful statement, because it is a lot of what the dynamics of what has happened to us through the generations. I posted in the community tab the other day about breaking generational curses, being that Davidic generation that fights all of the giants so that our Solomons will be able to have peace. And I feel very much like that's where we're at. That's the time that we're at. But as Second Exodus was saying earlier, that we're having these conversations now that are necessary. We're talking again to one another, and we're not ashamed to be able to have these conversations that in the past, they just were unspoken. We were just receiving the receptors of what other groups, other nationalities had labeled us with. And now we're saying, no, we're changing the narrative and speaking the truth of the Most High Yahuwah, which is our own truth. So I'm going to go ahead and put it back on, and we can continue the discussion.
You actually brought that up, what you just said about other races of men or ethnic groups, noticing about Black women. As a Black woman, it seems that they just look but never come over or never touch, in my opinion, or in my experience. So what made you say that you even see it with like other ethnic?
Well, I mean, this is the thing, like, you know, a lot of times, even in social media or whatever, or even if you watch people in interviews on talk shows, they talk about how, you know, well, he just was attracted to me, and he tells me I'm beautiful, and he makes me feel this certain type of way, and all of that. Well, these are things that I do, you know, to Black women all the time. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's natural to me. So whatever they're seeing in Black women, I see the same exact thing, but I see it, like he said, double fold. You understand what I'm saying? So, you know, I just said that to say that it's a valid feeling. It's something that can be verified across the board. It's not just something that I'm sitting here saying. You understand what I'm saying? So that's all.
It's I think along with what he's saying, there's always intimidation and power. And one of the stereotypes about Black women is that they're intimidated.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And for anything to be a stereotype, there has to be an agreement across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what we talk about when that thing we see. We just not intimidated by it.
Well, all right.
And honestly, only recently, like you were saying before, recently a lot of non-Black men have been approaching more and more Black women. But I think this is has a lot to do with how Black men are being viewed by Black women and how a lot of Black men are doing. You know what I mean? How, if you go on in and you see all types of, Black men, like, well, if you want to call them that, but they talk so bad about Black women. You got some people saying the craziest things you couldn't even imagine about how Black women look and this, that, and the third. And it really, I think it lets other niggas know, like, oh, okay, wow, that now that you can see that their guard is let down, Black women's guard, because before, Black men it was pretty obvious that Black men still adore Black women. Now it's kind of like this, and the media doesn't help, pushing that, making it seem like Black men don't want Black women. You know what I mean? So then it makes non-Black men feel like, oh, I can approach her because now she feels alone or she feels abandoned. Now I have more of a chance.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean? Because, like, honestly, like, they know to a great extent, like, you can never really compare to a Black man, especially to a Black woman. You know what I mean? So it only would take a time like this where things are really exaggerated, and even, there's a lot of truth to it too, where a lot of Black males kind of like their minds have been warped to kind of talk about Black women a certain kind of way.
So now it's giving them courage to actually
you see that courage a lot of
they
times.
Always wanted to. Look at the way that they look. If you look back in time, you see they used to wear those dresses and stuff where the butt was kind of posted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look at those things, or the museums and stuff where they actually had Black women in. They had Black women in zoos. So why would you have something in zoo to look at it? You've always wanted that.
And then if you look at it on a like you said, a historic scale and on a global scale, because we tend to put things in the context of America, but globally, it's recorded that non-Black men, white men, Arab men have gone into Black populations like Africa or whatever to have access to Black women. Now, whether it's obviously, for the most part, exploitive access. You know what I mean? They want to exploit them sexually or whatever, but they're not running to Europe to try to have access to white women. You understand what I'm saying? They're leaving Europe to have access to young Black women in Africa who are probably economically disadvantaged, so they can use their position to have access to Black women. I mean, this thing is recorded all across, in Africa and wherever there's Black populations. There are men who pay thousands of dollars to fly across the globe so they can have access to Black women, And so this thing is real, even at times during when we were being colonized and subjugated and enslaved or whatever, they didn't waste no time trying to rape Black women. They wanted access to Black women. So it hasn't stopped is what I'm saying, And so there's this idea that they're not attracted to Black women. Everyone is attracted to Black women, everyone is, And so now whether you can be programmed to dislike it or to hate it, that's one thing. But for the most part, they're attracted to Black women. Now, you talked about them being scared to approach them. There is a new thing going on. Like I remember maybe a year or two back, there was an episode of the Toni Braxton sisters where they went to Europe or something. They went on some trip, and this white dude just walked up and grabbed one of them on the butt, like it was nothing, and they were just, oh my gosh, did you see? Yeah, research it. That episode really happened, So, he just walked up and grabbed her on the butt like it was nothing. And so, and the reaction was crazy because the sisters were more like, why he didn't grab me or something like that, which was a little weird, but my whole point is it just that the attraction is there. Or even there was a Beyonce incident where she was on stage, white dude reached up and grabbed her butt, right? This is Beyonce. This is somebody who's a megastar, world megastar. She got a husband who's supposed to be hardcore. You don't do things like that unless you bold. You understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. He also felt like he could get away with it.
He felt like he can get away with it. I mean, he did, right? I mean,
is that part of the privilege, though?
Well, there's some privilege there, but my whole point is that there is a shift, I guess, in the boldness of, but
the
a lot of
approach.
yeah,
They
and
didn't
you
feel
know
like
what?
they could get away with that a while ago. Like a lot of white used to feel like they could even talk
Right.
to black.
Right,
And they couldn't. A lot of them
Right.
couldn't. Like
Yeah, a
black
lot of
person be
them
like, "Oh, please," like,
Right. Right.
you know what I mean?
Okay. So a lot was said there, a lot to unpack there. And I'm going to put y'all in the hot seats. I hope you're ready. Okay. I want to know, you personally, when you see a divesting black man, whether he's with an Asian, white woman, Arab woman, what are your thoughts? How do you feel just at the sight of this couple together? And also, when you see a divesting black woman, Asian, Arab, white, etc., how do you feel? I'm going to start with Second Exodus.
Okay, I'm guilty. Because I divested before.
Okay. Come on, do tell. What was that like?
Well, it was for me, I, being kind of like naive. I kind of looked at it like, oh, okay, this is different. But she had her preconceived notions about, my people, which I never really. I'm always defensive. And so, she might make a comment like, oh, I feel like an Oreo right now, meaning there's two black people next to her and she's in the middle. There was another comment. I can give a recent one. I dated a Chinese lady, and she will always talk about, it was that time period where I was like, let's go to Africa. I want to go to Ghana. And she was like, I don't want to go to Africa. It's too poor.
Wow.
But she didn't mind me going to China. I never went to China, but she wanted me to go to China. And I'm like, well, China is not all rich either. There's a lot of poor spots there too.
Right.
And so I started feeling guilty myself. I was like, well, it's not worth it, going through all these mental and emotional battles with these foreign women, when I could just, be with my women who I'm used to. And then as far as like seeing other women, okay, I'm gonna put my sister on the hot seat. She's dating an Ashkenazi Jew. And I understand it because she's always loved black men. I'm gonna get that out there. She loves black men, but she's been kind of burnt a lot by a lot of black men.
Okay.
So she's getting older, and she's only a couple 20 months younger than me, and she's like, hey, I want to get married, I want to have kids. I don't know how, I don't want to wait till I'm too old. And so, there's these white guys, not all of them are good, but there's this one particular white guy whose mom is a Christian, his dad is Jewish, and he likes her. He's taken her to Dave Chappelle, concerts, and he's nice to her. He came by and visited the family. So, I mean, I don't prefer it, if that makes sense. I would rather for her to get with a good black guy, but we got to step up to the plate. We got our parts to play too, as men, to be responsible and not mistreat our sisters.
Okay. I'm not going to add anything to that just yet. I'm going to give Brother Floyd the chance to step in and say his piece.
Well, I think in terms of the man self and how that whole dynamic plays out divesting, is that I kind of chalk it up to him not having the confidence or the esteem, or if I can use the term, the game, to continue to grow a relationship. I think I called, in a lot of cases, his intents into question, because most men, black men, a lot of black men, I won't say all, they want a docile woman that will do what he wants them to do. And that's not necessarily in the nature of a black woman at the best. So rather than measure up to the best of a black woman and equal her in terms of what she brings to the table, they want someone who they can take advantage of, exploit, or be the head without being able to, how do I put this? If you don't bring enough to the table, you are intimidated by those who already have it. So you don't want someone you have to compete with in your own home. You just soon have someone who will always be your subordinate because it becomes a lot less threatening to you. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. As a matter of fact, I recently heard that. Like, I recently heard that the issue with our brothers is that, we're too, I guess, in a way, in our, we're going to hold you under the fire more than other nationalities will, and that kind of, makes our brothers pull back. Like, I hear a lot of brothers that will talk about, like, oh, well, we don't really want to date an older woman, even though someone that's in our age group. We don't want to date a woman that's in our age group. We'd rather get them younger because they're more essentially they're more trainable, right? Like, the older they get, the less they're going to put up with this and put up with that. When they're younger, they're going to be doing this. What we tell them to do is what they're going to do. So when it comes to the issue of Black women and Black men, I've heard the same exact thing that you've said. But I agree with both of your points that when it comes to, our brothers, that, why not step up to the plate? You see, the thing about it for me as a sister, I have to agree right here with my sister Highly Favored, because I think that, the essence of us joining together is that we're both built strong. I think John Shippey, he had put that message in the chat. We are, as Hebrew people, are built incredibly strong. And so a lot of what we see, the dynamics as Black women, when it comes to our Black men, is we see the potential, right? We see the power that is like deep welled on the inside of you. But because the world has beat you down, because historically from one generation to the next, you've been told that you're nothing and Willie lynched, and we've been Willie lynched, that collectively, we just see this almost like a attitude that's just like, I'm not going to try. I'm not going to fight. I'll go with what's easier. But that's not what we want. We want you to be able to, live out your full potential. We want to be able to see you do that world traveling and own those businesses and, lead a godly family and lead in the community. That's what we're looking for. But it seems like that's too much work, and that's what's painful on that side. So as far as my opinion, when it comes to seeing the divestors, like, I get it. As a woman, I understand why women do it, exactly as Second Exodus said, because oftentimes when it comes to dealing with our relationships, we're dealing with so much trauma in the relationships. That term, #struggle love. There's so much struggle love in our relationships, and not just from an economic standpoint, but just in terms of a dysfunction, in terms of emotion, psychology, spirituality. There's just so much dysfunction that it just becomes a habitation where it's toxic. And we're looking to see that softness. We're looking to see, or what we believe, we perceive, right? Because that's what the narrative is that other cultures, they don't have to deal with this stuff. The Asians don't have to deal with this. The Arabs and the Caucasians, they don't have to deal with this. But more and more it's coming out as the internet is becoming more and more explosive and the world is becoming more interconnected, that every nation is dealing with similar things when it comes to relationships. It's just they hide theirs a lot better. We put ours out there on the carpet, our negativity. And so, I love to see my two chocolate brews loving on one another. I just think we're the most attractive people on the earth. So I'm sorry, I'm impartial, but I just think we are supposed to be together and blooming and prospering. So that's my thoughts on that. I'm going to go ahead and continue on with the video.
So they've been emboldened by a lot of stuff that's been going on in the media or whatnot. But what I would say also is that even that shouldn't be looked at in a positive way, because that's a violation of personal space.
Right. Oh yeah.
Just like in terms of, like I said, they would go to Africa and rape Black women. You understand what I'm saying? Even today, you can just research the United Nations peacekeepers raping Black women and leaving just all of these babies there. They go over there as peacekeepers. They're not keeping the peace. Mm-hmm. They rape a lot of young Black women who have no money or whatever. Mm-hmm. So these men look like someone who can offer them something a lot of times. So, the scenarios where these things can happen are they're not regular scenarios. These aren't women who are well off financially, right, or have food to eat for tomorrow. So, something that under normal circumstances, they would be able to avoid.
Mhm.
But these are circumstances where there's people who come in positions of power with some type of authority, with some type of resources, and they come to exploit these women, and then they leave all of these babies behind and go back to Europe, and then
Right.
take trips back and forth.
Mhm.
I mean, you got white men, even just, that go to Thailand or whatever to find, other women to dominate. But for the most part, you can actually do research of historically and presently that people are, they want access to Black women. And
So I want to touch on this real quick because he talked about these other nationalities to go and exploit Black women, especially on the continent, and leave them with children, multiple children, and then they just go. But we know that single motherhood is a prevalent issue within our community, Black men with Black women. What are you guys' thoughts in terms of how our men are operating and other men are operating when it comes to making single mothers out of Hebrew women? Brother Floyd, you can go first.
I, for one, think it's so disrespectful, so demeaning, so problematic that this whole thing has caused us to destroy ourselves. We're actually participating in our own demise because we are perpetuating some of the same things that they said about us, which were never true. So we almost, by our own actions, make that which has never really been true, because we've always been a relational family, a relational people, family-oriented people. And we've actually become who they say we are. And it's hurtful because, again, when you have a union that works because you have two parents in the house and you have children, it's hard enough doing it that way, but there's so much reward to it. I learned something from, I love my dad, rest his soul. I learned a lot from him. One of the things I learned is that you have to bring and keep the family together. He was married 2 or 3 times. He and my mom got divorced when I was 6, and it crushed my sister. And I wasn't happy about it, didn't know how I felt about it. But the bottom line of it was that I learned so much about the commitment of staying with the woman that you connect with, the one that you unite with, because it's a commitment. And I think it takes care of a lot of the ills in our society, in our culture, in our communities when you have 2-parent households. I think about all the conversations I have with my kids now who are all adults, and they're so appreciative of the fact that they had what hardly any of their friends had, which was 2 parents in the household. And they're still realizing how valuable that whole dynamic was. And it's bad enough if you make children and you leave. That alone, I mean, to me, that's off the charts. I mean, I don't have words for that, because it is as destructive as a gun in the house, a loaded gun in the house when nobody knows how to use it.
Yeah, I hear you 100%. I definitely think that it's very toxic. But, on the flip side of that, what about the argument that a lot of men have where they say that, the Black women are driving the men out of the homes? I mean, can either one of you speak to that? Has that been a reality that you've seen in your own life? Has that been a reality that you've seen in other people's lives?
Oh, absolutely. It's all in my family.
Okay.
And so there's a term I learned a few days ago called pathological normalcy. And things can be so pathological that it becomes normal across the board, like single parent, single mothers. I honestly believe that there's some truth on both sides. There's definitely truth on both sides. There's men who don't know how to be good fathers and good men. And then there's women who are very westernized. It's not just a Black woman issue. It's a modern woman Western issue, but Black women get the brunt of it because of our socioeconomic position as a people. We don't own anything. We can't push policies and stuff to correct some of the things that is encouraging our brokenness. I see more commercials about Black men with white women or black women with white men, but you never see them do that to any other race as often.
Yeah, that's true. You don't see them do that.
They want to split us up. They want us to. You see black men with white men. They do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they just constantly want to keep us separate. And I'm hoping that we as men would recognize the tricks of the Gentile nations and come together and say, we need to change these policies. We need to, we need to come from a more biblical standpoint, like abortion and LGBTQ. None of that stuff has helped our community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sister
when it
Sean,
comes
let me share this just so that I don't misrepresent the fact that I am pro male because I am one. I do hold us responsible, and I also do know that it's a two-sided street. So I do know that there are also policies in place in every city and every state in Babylon where the woman is penalized for having a man in her home that is the father of her children. If they're not married, he has to leave and he has to almost divest himself from his family in order for her to get benefits. And so that puts pressure on the woman and on the man. So there are certain dynamics that are on the books that really play against the whole unity of families. So they have put policies in place that circumvent the unity of the family. And that's something we really can't ignore because it's been going on for a long time and it's still being perpetuated.
Excellent point. And that's why we have to have these conversations again, because there's so many external factors, so many things that are nuanced within the systems of Babylon that we are existing in. And I think that, we oftentimes, just if you really want to keep it 100, most of our brothers and our sisters are not really fitting that into the equation as much as we should be. You understand what I'm saying? It's like there are so many dynamics behind the erasure of the Black family. And we're looking at things on the micro level oftentimes rather than on the macro level. So you spilled the milk, so we're going to get in an argument, and then we're going to get an argument that's going to be blown out of proportion. But really, we're highly stressed out because that milk costs $7 in the grocery store, and we're dealing with economic situations that are holding us back no matter how hard we try, no matter how hard we work. And then when you bring that dynamic into the place, when you have a lot of material wealth that is put before you, and yet you can't access that oftentimes, then as Black women, oftentimes we feel like, well, I'm getting the short end of the stick because I'm not getting access to those things that other groups of women are getting access to, which puts the Black man under stress who is attempting to be committed to his family. It says, I can't win for losing. I'm trying, but I can't please you no matter what. So you have all of these dynamics that happen. And I tell you, for my own household, my husband and I, we've been married 17 years. We have been together on and off for 25 years. And I will say that when we both come from divorced homes for separate reasons, but because of that brokenness that we come from, it is so very important to both of us that we change that pattern, that we change that trajectory, that we do a reversal to break the curses off of our lineage. And I just don't think that our people collectively, you know what I'm saying, that are not awake, that don't understand things from a biblical perspective, let alone from a socioeconomic perspective, that they're bringing that into the equation, that it's not just you and your home that's being disrupted, but it's the entire community of us that is being targeted by these factors. So that's my thoughts on that. If y'all have anything else to say before I start up this video again, please feel free.
That was perfect. Even with passport bros, right? The reason why they're going out to these other countries is because, their men have established a society where their women can be feminine and can be nurturing and can be more mothering and not as strong. So we just, there's been a constant attack on us to keep our families separate. But what you said is perfect.
Praise Yahuwah. All right, let me continue on with this video.
So, this is something, like I said, that I see, I have that same attraction to Black women, but it's a respectful attraction as opposed to a violation. You understand what I'm saying?
You know what's funny about what you're saying? It was a 16-year-old. He said it like this. He said, due to like the Ronald Reagan era and the whole welfare queen situation, that's the way that the other races look at us. So when they see Black men can't take care of their woman, etc., when a white man comes or the Asian or whoever comes down to the ghetto to be with a Black woman, it's not because they actually love them. It seems like it's easier. It takes less. Your man can't take care of you. I can take care of you. Your man is not saying you're beautiful, etc., because he's struggling, he's going through his thing. So now I could come and take advantage of the situation. So even when that becomes their wife, etc., it's easy. It's more about it being easy rather than actually being loved.
Okay. So do you think there is an agenda via Hollywood and social media to push interracial dating?
I would say there's definitely an agenda, especially in the media. For the most part, like if you look at the relationships that they push in the movies, they always have a Black man with a non-Black woman. Even a lot of Tyler Perry movies, they try to
with Will Smith and
that was they were hard with that.
Even not just relationship wise, but just the Black male saving a white woman or something.
Right.
Denzel has saved so many white women, and I like Denzel. right. He's just wow, the little white girl. I mean, all of these movies, they push this the Black man with the non-Black woman, and the cool part about it is, when you look at the statistics, it's not really statistically sound to promote that. So it's being pushed. It's not like it's a reflection of reality. Art is not imitating life. What you have is an art form trying to influence life. You know what I mean? So that we can follow this art. You understand what I'm saying? So it's really deep, and recently they've been trying to push it on the Black woman. If you look at certain television shows like Lincoln Heights or like you said, Scandal, or what other shows? The Princess and the Frog. All of these type of things have been made to push a multiracial or interracial for Black relationships
Specifically,
right?
Yeah.
Because when you look at you look at the other images of other races, they keep them in pairs, and so it's definitely out there.
You think it's underlying that they're trying to figure out a way to get rid of our race?
Yeah, well, yeah, and you know what? It's funny because there's a concept in our community that Black is dominant and Black cannot be bred out.
It's not true. They done it in Australia.
Yeah, they did it in Australia. If you look at Rabbit Proof Fence, there's a movie called Rabbit Proof Fence where they describe how after a generation or two,
after three generations,
it's gone. The Blackness is gone, and so this whole idea that people take genetic dominance and take it to mean genetic
immortality.
Yeah, exactly. Like it cannot be destroyed. Like indestructible genes. It's not indestructible. Right. It's just dominant, which means you put these two together. Yeah, it's going to show up more. But if you keep adding something else to it, it's going to be it's going to fall from what it once was. And this is another thing.
Can I add on to something he said earlier?
Okay.
He was talking about them basically destroying the Black family unit, because when blacks at home get together, then we start interacting with our brothers and stuff a little better. Then we start thinking about what can we build, etc. We have evidence of that. You've seen it in. I mean, you could go as far as back as ancient Kemet, what people call Egypt. You know what I mean, and how we interacted with each other and the things that we did. They still can't figure those pyramids out today.
Right.
You could go back to the Garveyite movement, and you see all of these Black proud people funding this man. I think he had over 20,000
million. It was like 10 million followers.
It was
10 million members of
funding his movement. I think he had like 20,000 people funding his movement in a time where you have no social media, etc. You have he got 65,000 people to come out to Madison Square Garden based on adding up all the nights together. I think he did a 3-night thing, filled up Madison Square Garden each time. And then from there, they all put their funding together and start building things. They put together they got the Black Star Line, etc. You see it with look at Tulsa, Oklahoma. Let's look at Black Wall Street. Let's look at all these different things we've done. When we get together, we work best as a collective.
That's an excellent point to break on. When we get together, when we come together as a collective, we build, we are strong, we are powerful. Welcome, Brother Yacoba. I want to know your thoughts. I don't know if you've been watching from the very beginning, but let me know what your thoughts are so far about what you've been hearing.
Yeah, I saw some of this earlier, and I didn't catch all of the beginning of the show, but my comments won't be too popular. Because
that's all right. Are they ever too popular?
That's true. That's true. But I think our people move in packs, right? We like to move as a tribe because we are tribes and we're tribal. And we just happen to be a part of a bigger tribe called Babylon. And so we're easily influenced by this new tribe that we're a part of. And so one of the things I've seen, because, I'm older than a lot of people, and I've seen the women change, the younger women. They dress for themselves. They dress for other women. And, they wear the fake eyelashes, the fake hair, the fake nails, the tattoos, the sexy clothes, and the guys don't want that. And the guys tell them they don't want that, and they still do it. I was even watching a post today by someone on Facebook, and they were talking about a submissive woman. And one of the Israelite women said, yes, I submit to Yah. But see, that's the problem. It's not only Yah, because he's first, but your husband's second, right? And so, there's a hierarchy because the woman comes from man. And so a lot of our women don't know how to submit. They don't know what submission means. They think that means they're a slave. To be a housewife is a slave. To take care of the kids is a slave. And this is why, as Second Exodus was saying, a lot of the guys are becoming passport bros. I couldn't imagine if I had to find someone today who you would want to marry in the States. I mean, there's still some traditional feminist, honorable women. Yes, I met them, that there's an awful lot that's not. So.
Oh, Sookie, now he done brought out the big S word now. Oh my goodness. Yes, I'm telling you, that word right there is like kryptonite, okay, to a lot of our women. And I have to be honest with y'all, it was kryptonite for me for a very long time, see, because I was raised by a feminist. Okay, now somebody say, are you a feminist? No, I'm not a feminist, but I was raised by one. So I understand the dynamics of women's empowerment movement. I understand how many of our women back in that time, they felt powerless. But I think you brought up some excellent points about this idea of, women doing for themselves, right? Sisters are doing it for themselves. I don't need no man, I could do bad all by myself. I'm going to dress the way I want to dress. You can't tell me nothing. I was hearing a lot of these brothers who were talking about, how the women wear the eyelashes and they wear the weaves, and they're not doing it for them. They're doing it for themselves. And I think that there is a measure of truth to that. But I think it's, gotten to the point where, we swung into the entire end of the other pendulum where it's like, okay, we're going from one extreme to the next. I personally believe that there has to be a balance, right? So I believe that as a woman that I have my own unique, let me see how to put it, my own unique expressions, the things that I like, the things that make me happy, that, I'm creative in this way. I aesthetically like to see things this way versus my husband, who it don't matter to him what color the curtains are. It doesn't matter to him, about the flowers that I put up on the countertop. He just wants to come home to a peaceful home. And I get that. But see, my home being peaceful means that it's aesthetically pleasing as well. But when it comes to, not say me, right, because I've learned over the years how to be a more submissive wife. When it comes to these younger brew women, that idea of submission altogether is like, it's anathema. It's like, how dare you expect this from me? But it also, and I'm going to throw this caveat in there, comes because a lot of what we see is that our brothers are not necessarily walking in faithfulness. They're not walking in faithfulness to their families. There's a lot of adultery. There's a lot of pornography. There's a lot of low expectations, all of those things. And so I feel like there's just this big dysfunction mess that has to get unraveled. So I think you made some excellent points for sure. But, you know, there's a lot of sisters out here going to say, submit to what when you don't have a vision?
I mean, y'all right. I mean, the brother, a lot of the brothers, they're not stepping up, right? They're not living holy lives. They're not being a good example. They're not being a good provider. They're not being faithful. So it is, you know, when you boil it all down, it's the man's fault, right? Because he's supposed to lead. And I think, you know, it's gotten out of control, and only Father Yah can fix it, because they have corrupted us. Because as you all were saying earlier, you know, they passed these laws where, you know, the man can't stay in the house if you want to get help from the government.
Right.
Right. So they purposefully broke up our homes, and they did an excellent job at it. But now it's time for us to learn. Because here's the thing, like, for instance, you know, I don't want to start no fights, but like with Sakari now, right? They're supposed to be Hebrew Israelites, but then they go to a Passover where they're strippers. I'm like, there was no excuse for that, right? And that is not a good example, and that's not good leadership.
Exactly. There's not good leadership. And I think, you know, that's, you know, early on, you know, as a young married woman, you know, I know that my husband was going through those same dynamics of trying to figure out how to lead this new family. And when you don't have good role models, right? When you don't have, you know, a father or a grandfather or a great grandfather that is going to be able to show you, because in his generation, every time he attempted, he was stopped. Then that makes it very difficult in this generation. But that young brother was talking about back in, was it back during, what's the word I'm looking for? Black Wall Street, when we were working together, when we were a team. Brother Floyd, you want to speak to any of this idea of submission, vision, working together, reasons why we're not working together?
Yeah, I couldn't add too much more to what's already been said. I appreciate Brother Yacob sharing what he did about some of the dynamics that interfere with the same progress. We have to recognize these things. We have to step back and get out of our feelings long enough to see what's happening, because we have to understand that when the enemy was cast upon the earth, the voice came from heaven saying, woe to the inhabitants of the earth. We're playing on a different playing field. And until you learn the rules of the game here on earth or in Babylon, you're going to be fish food for the big fish. So this whole thing about showing men, showing women something to want to gravitate to, something to want to submit to, it has everything to do with leadership. It has everything to do with humility in the sight of the Most High. Because I can just say for myself, why do I want to follow someone who is not leading a good example? So I get that. I understand it. So again, it's already been said. This goes to a large extent back to the head. Think about the very first family, Adam and Eve. When Eve sinned, the Most High came after Adam. Even though Adam wasn't the one to transgress, Adam was not a covering to her. And so what I know by being in a relationship for a long time, women love and want and need security. They want to feel protected, because, I mean, this whole dynamic about security. When you put a fence around sheep, and you tell the sheep, you can roam everywhere you want inside these walls and you're going to be protected. There's a certain confidence with those sheep to be able to go and come as they please within the confines of that sheep pen. It's when they get outside of that is when they lose security. So what we have to do is continue to build a fence of protection, a hedge around our families. And until women feel that hedge of protection, and that until they feel that and that they're not in a position of exposure, they're going to have a hard time submitting, and that's understandable. So I think it's important that we give them every reason to submit by showing a good, healthy environment that they can thrive in.
Now, Brother Floyd, I mean, everything that you're saying is just amazing, and I love it. And I know that I speak on behalf of many of our sisters, but at the same time, you know, the idea of you as a Black man in this Babylonian system, what do you think it would take in order for our brothers to even get to that point where they're able to just say, you know what, I want to offer that hedge of protection. I want to offer that safety to you so that you can feel comfortable. What would it take in order for them to get there? Because you guys, the truth is, you know, to be quite balanced, y'all have a lot of weight on your own shoulders as Black men. How is it that you're able, because I know that you're a businessman, how is it that you're able to navigate and to weave through all these obstacles and still create this hedge of protection for your family? And by the way, thank you so much, Tratney, for your super sticker. I appreciate you.
Sis, it's only by the grace of the Most High, because I am hard on myself. So I realize that when I mess up, I blame myself before I feel the pressure or the weight from someone else, because I expect better of myself. And I think we have to get out of our own feelings as men. We have to stop putting ourselves first. And once we start looking at the importance of the role that we play, there is no greater role. Again, we go back to Adam and all the other examples of the man being the lead, and how healthy everyone else is when the man is good. When the man does what he's supposed to be, what he's supposed to do, and is in order, everything else falls in order. So I think we have to examine ourselves to find out, well, where are we lacking? And we also have to seek the help of others, because again, if we didn't have role models in our lives as young people, as young men, as boys, it's going to be hard to get that. And I've made a lot of mistakes. I talk more and more with my sons now, which are all adults, and I get a lot of satisfaction hearing from them the good that I did, but also I take some lumps because I allow them to share what I didn't do right. And I still want to be a good example, and part of being a good example is owning my own stuff when I don't do very well. And so I think we have to get rid of the pride that gets in our way and be a career learner. I'm still learning stuff, even from my kids. So I think it's important for us to be humble enough to humble ourselves and be coachable and teachable, because you never know where that wisdom and that understanding is going to come from.
Man, that's powerful. That's so powerful. Okay, Second Exodus, I'm not leaving you out, but I want to hear from Brother Jacob again, because, you know, hearing it from a married man's perspective hits a little bit different. Brother Jacob, how long have you been married?
What is it? 30 years?
30 years. Wow, that's amazing. That is awesome. And in your 30 years of being married, how have you been able to navigate through this Babylonian system and be that strong leader? I mean, look, you know, you're leading almost 40,000 people online. So I imagine that the Most High has put, you know, that many people under your care, that when it comes to your home, that is something that he trained you in. So how is it that you've been able to maximize in your leadership at home so that you can help young brothers like, let's say, Second Exodus, who is going to be, you know, building his home?
Well, I can tell you this straight up. My wife wasn't going to marry me till I was born again.
Okay.
She knew me before I was born again, but she told me she wasn't marrying me until I got born again. And so that helps. And, you know, I've always knew the type of woman that I want, right? And, you know, that's who I married, a beautiful woman, submissive, you know. She don't talk back to me, you know. I mean, she still has her own will, you know, but, you know, she let me be the head, right? She don't be going at me like that, you know. Y'all know my personality. That wouldn't work well with me. So
yeah, we got you, bro. We got you.
so you know, I mean, for me, you know, I'm a blessed man, and you know, I think, you know, you just gotta make sure you find a godly person and who tries to live out that word, you know.
Yeah, that's definitely key. Second Exodus, before we move on, you're hearing from these brothers, you know, what are your thoughts about what you're hearing in terms of your own leadership capacity? Because I think a lot of times young men that, you know, when y'all go and you see a beautiful woman, you know, this culture isn't really preparing you to be the leader of that woman. But as you're listening to these powerhouses, what are your thoughts about how you can lead if this particular lady ends up being your wife?
That's a great question. I appreciate my brothers, my elders, Jacoba and Floyd, for sharing their wisdom and their knowledge with millennials such as myself and other Gen Z and future young men. I think it's exactly what Jacoba said about just being born again. You have to have a renewal of mindset. You can't say I'm a Hebrew and keeping the Passover in a strip club.
Right.
It doesn't scream that you're born again. And as far as leadership is concerned, it sounds like, just taking accountability, being responsible, making sure that not only can you take care of yourself, but you've prepared to take care of and lead other people in your life. Like, the reason why Jacoba leads over 40,000 people is because he has that leadership at home.
Right.
And it just gives off, that leadership doesn't stop in one area of your life. It continues to spread in other areas of your life. And so if you're a leader at home, you're going to be a leader on your workforce. You're going to be a leader everywhere. So I'm going to replicate that. I'm going to pay attention and observe and learn as much as I can. And if I have questions, I'm going to ask people who've been married over 30 years because they're doing something right.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well said. I love what you said there, Brother Floyd, about being a lifelong learner. That's amazing. And that's literally how I live my life. I'm like, you know what? I never can get past the day that I don't need to learn something. And that's one of the things that my husband and I, stress when it comes to our teenage boys as they're growing up, is being prepared to be that husband before you become that husband. And I think, we have to include in this dynamic of, this idea of dating and marrying among ourselves, marrying the right one. Jacoba spoke to a minute ago about, if you have to go out in this world right now and date. Y'all, I'm in the position where I'm like telling my sons, listen, you guys are probably gonna have to get some DNA tests to make sure that the person that you're entertaining is actually a woman. Okay, we're in that stage of life. And it's really sad. Or they're going to be passport bros, right? Because they're not going to have to deal with that as much going to other nations if the Most High has not already regathered us. But there's just so much when it comes to this dynamic of picking and choosing the right person that you're going to be married to. Because if you pick the wrong person, then that person will literally, just destroy your life if they're not submitted unto the Most High. So shout out to Brother Jacoba's wife for saying, listen, bro, unless you submit it to the Most High, we can't do this. I love it. All right, we're going to continue to listen on.
And if you destroy the home, then you could destroy the rest.
Mm-hmm. You destroy the black family, then what do you have?
And ultimately, you destroy the way each one looks at each other, too. You know what I mean? It's like they've been doing things with certain black male actors, too. One of the most revered black male actors, in Hollywood is Morris Chestnut, and sisters love him, right? You know what I mean? So, but then he's got this new, he's been the one brother that was kind of like
in everything.
He's got a new TV show called Rosewood, and if you go like in certain neighborhoods, they have a picture of him right there, and it's got this she's like a Spanish girl that he flirts with and tries to get with, and it's like they just keep enhancing that, like pushing that, like, no, he wants her. So you know what I mean? You need to figure something else out. You know what I mean? They were talking about the TV show, what's it called, Black Love or something? They had a TV show called Black Love, but it had it was interviewing nothing but black males who said, no, I like dating out of my race because this, that, and the third. They couldn't find no brothers.
That's right,
but they couldn't. But all the sisters were saying, they want black men, but they were acting like they just could not find no brothers who was like, nah, I like black women, like this, that, and the third. And that's gotta be, by design. It's like, you got some brothers who would even say like, well, I'm like dated, I'm married black woman at the very least. I think that's a lot more brothers like that. But they made sure they found Brothers was like, nah, I like damn already. I don't like
They found a Tommy Sotomayor.
Right.
You know, well, and I just want to address another thing about the whole interracial thing, or just the one drop of black blood idea, you know, makes you black. And, you know, that was an idea that was created by people who weren't black. You know, they came up with that theory and we just took it and run with it. Like we take everything from them and run with it. Like it was a dictation from God. Like, oh, you know, this is law. This is what it is. You understand what I'm saying? So, you know, it's not true, you know. This is the thing. And, you know, we can argue about genetics, about, you know, blackness being dominant, you know, it is dominant, but it's not invincible. You understand what I'm saying? But what I will say is that even if you just put the genetics to the side, if we honestly believe black people are beautiful, wouldn't we want to see more black people looking like black people? So the more you mix with something that is not black, or that they don't look like black people, obviously, then you fall away from black beauty. So if you believe in black beauty, why would you want to water it down? So just a step in genetics aside for a second, because a lot of times people want to say it doesn't matter what it is, they're still black. Okay, fine, but are they black beautiful? You know what I mean? Are they beautiful black people exhibiting black beauty as we know it? You understand what I'm saying? Because black beauty is not Paris Hilton. You know what I mean? That's not black beauty. That's something else, right? Right. So the more you get towards that, then you don't have black beauty anymore. Right. Okay. Right. And so that's one of the things that I try to get people to realize. You know, even if you accept people who are mixed as black, which is fine. But the further you mix away from black, you fall away from that beauty that we all say we love, right?
Also, real quick. I think a lot of black people also confuse shades with genotype. Right. You know what I'm saying? We come in all shades. Okay, we come in all shades, but we don't come in all genotypes. You know what I mean? It's one genotype of black people. It's a collective of different looks. Right. But there's a certain look to a black person that makes the genetic code of a black person. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you know, you see like a white person walking down the street or an Asian person, go, oh, we come in all shades. They're black. Like, none of this. Because there's another black there's another black person who's just the same shade or might be close to their shade. It's frivolous. Right. You know what I mean?
It's like, you know, it's funny because the same people who will say, you know, well, blackness, you know, is everything. You know, it's in all colors and they have all different hair types. But then they'll, you know, use ancient statues that are found and say, that's a black person. Well, if that's the case, you're basically telling us that we do have a specific look to us, because that's how you point to the statue and say, that's of a black person. So then when we have this conversation about interracial, it just all falls apart and you say, well, everybody, you know, we have all shades, we have all, you know, shapes to our face and textures to our hair. If that's the case, then what is black? If everyone is black, no one is black.
But even in that though,
if everybody's black, nobody's black. You know, what's the whole point of even saying you're black or loving being black if you believe everyone is black? You know what I mean? So, you know,
who is saying that?
These are the people, when you get into a conversation with someone about whether or not they should date outside of their race or date with other people, they'll say things like, well, they come from us anyways, right?
It's based off Darwinism. Yeah. It's based off Darwinism, the out of Africa theory. It's a lot of people that believe that, you know, the first person was in Africa, etc. That part, true, right? But when you get to dealing with, I guess you could say, types of humans, you know, Homo sapiens isn't the only type of human that was here. You have, I believe they're called the descendants, you have Neanderthals, you have etc. You can't find no links between them and the humanoids that were in Africa. So you can't say that this person is just African or of African descent or what we call black just because they have a darker shade. Or, you know what I mean?
And that's what, so when you said, you know, who said, you know, everyone's black, I was basically bouncing off of something that he was saying when he said that, you know, you can't confuse shade with phenotype.
Now I want to pause it right there because they're talking a lot about the science behind blackness. And we as a people know who we are, right? We know we are the Yahudim, which we know comes from Shem. And we also know that we do have people that look almost identical to us that come from the line of Ham. So let's talk not so much about white divestment for a minute. Let's talk about divestment with people from other nations that look like us. What are you guys' thoughts about that? Do you think that, you know, that there's room for that more than there's room for mixing with the other nationalities, or we just need to stick among Israel and that's it?
I believe we need to stick with what the Most High gave us a charge and a command was to connect with one another and maintain the purity of Israel. He did that for a reason. And oftentimes we don't quite understand why he tells us to do something, but we know it's for the right. Think about all of the dietary laws. We now know why it's not good to eat pork. It's not good to eat shellfish and all these things because they are harmful to our health. But just because, even if we didn't understand why, it's our charge to obey it and to walk in the obedience. That's where Israel failed. So I think there's something to be said about maintaining your own bloodline and continuing to perpetuate it. He told Adam and Eve to continue to perpetuate it. He told Noah's sons to perpetuate it. And I understand there's certain circumstances where you couldn't do that. You know, one of the examples is when the children of Israel went into Egypt. Not all of the children of Israel, the sons of Israel, were married at that time. They took wives of the children of Ham when they got in the land of Egypt. There are so many similarities so that no one would really focus on that as being something that was going to change the gene pool. But the original order was for us to procreate and to use the wrong word there. We would continue to perpetuate the race or perpetuate the bloodline by marrying within Israel.
May I be controversial for a second?
Go for it.
I understand what Brother Floyd is saying, but I think culture is more important personally. You know, let's say if I was in Africa, right, and I had an African American lady, Hebrew, with me, and then I had a Cushite, you know, but that Cushite is trying to keep the commandments of God, trying to eat kosher. We have more, you know, culturally in common, whereas the African American may want to eat pork, want to keep Easter, want to keep Thanksgiving, you know, can't get the Christmas tree out the house. Whereas the Cushite says, you know, your God, my God, you know, your people, my people. And so I would personally probably pick the Cushite woman or the Gentile woman who wants to be a part of Israel over the African American woman simply because of culture.
Interesting perspective. Welcome, Brother Don, and feel free. Any of y'all want to add on to this? And by the way, ladies, how y'all gonna leave me up here with all these brothers? There's a lot of testosterone up here. Okay, come on. I need some sisters up in here. All right, go ahead, brothers.
Okay,
So
I'm not gonna give you no feminine energy, but I will defend my sisters because I have sisters. I was raised in a single parent family, which is a plus and a minus. And so I have, and then based on that, the communal build off of that gave me the perspective and the history that got played out in my life. And sister, I've been laying back. The streets are so busy with our family tonight. Pastor Kelly just finished the teaching. Our other sister has got a live going. So y'all are doing it. Everybody, and listen, I don't want anybody to take offense. This is just how I came into this whole uh, association, and that was through Teo. So if I say, you know, the Teo family is busy tonight, please don't take offense to it. It's just that's how I came into this, and that's how I met everybody. So, you know, some people take offense to that, and I just like it's like no. But at any rate, um, it's crazy. It's crazy what they've done to us. Listen, I'm about to be 68, most high willing in about 3 months. 69. Most high willing in about 3 months. I have seen all of the mixed kind of crazy stuff that you could ever imagine. from the swirl to the academy agenda, and it is a hot fruit salad mess. And that's why the Most High is about to judge all this. It's crazy. It's crazy. And for me to be, 100% transparent, listen, I don't pass the brown paper bag test. I don't pass that. I don't pass that. And my mother was like, she had a very simple solution in terms of our grooming as males and her as a single mother. It was called Cavadas. And you deal with a lot of stuff in that situation in your whole socialization period. And then you come into a system which they call school or education, which is, white supremacy indoctrination. And they have used their social techniques that have matriculated down into the school system. And so now you got these little sassy little girls. They don't want nobody but Elder Barge. And if you're you, they make you feel bad about being you. Do you not think that logs into not only your data, but into your RAM? Every time the system boots up, you're going to remember that ridicule. And check this out. My mother was like, I will not have my children going through no kind of penal system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to engage them in their extracurricular activity time into something that's fruitful. So my family is a track and field family. We have 2 Olympians, my sister and my cousin. And when you are involved in that, you're exposed to other ethnicities. And primarily at that time in the 70s, early 70s, that was white folks. So when the little white girls was paying you attention and the little black girls in your hood were ridiculing you, you had your mother who was the authoritarian, who may not only have been the authoritarian, but not even doing things the right way. And that's a whole nother story. What do you think the image of a black woman looks like growing up from that point? And I don't blame the black woman. I blame this system. This was by design. From Willie Lynch letter forward, this was by design. And so, yeah, I've had those relationships. And the trip is this. This is the trip. When I've had those relationships, the cash flow was positive, inward. The relationships I have with my sisters, because I wanted to honor them or what have you, and they saw it as a open checkbook. It wasn't that I was a sucker. It was just that I praised you above. Yours was negative outflow. Theirs was positive inflow. But I ain't been in a relationship in like the last 7 years, and I don't need to be in one. My focus is getting the hell out of here, and that's pretty much it. And I'm going to land so somebody else can speak.
So in answer to your question, Sister Ashanda, in terms of marrying people who look like us, not necessarily the Caucasians, that's a tough one, because there's the balance between those who follow Yah and those who don't, because we have the examples of Rahab the harlot and stuff like that. It was Zipporah, the Canaanite, even though the scriptures told us not to marry the Canaanite. So that's a bit confusing sometimes. But, I think the idea of not marrying them still stands, because if you look at what happened also in the Old Testament, the Gentiles lived amongst us, right? The stranger, and the strangers even inherited land amongst the tribe that they lived on, but Israel still wasn't marrying them like that, right? And so, there's the idea of the royal seed, right? And that is the descendant of Jacob. And once you start intermingling with other people, then you no longer become the royal seed, which is probably why they had to put away their strange wives, right? And so, I'm not going against anyone who's married to a Gentile of whatever race, right? I mean, that's their covenant, that's their commitment. I'm not saying they're not in the will of the Most High, but we must understand that we have an inheritance. And there's an inheritance of land, and there's an inheritance of rulership, of being kings and priests. So once the other nations, especially let's say if it's a Gentile man with an Israelite woman, I don't see how he inherits anything, right? But a Israelite man who's with a Gentile woman, he could, that child could probably marry back in, to the nation. It's, but at the same time, there's some level of change that may have occurred. I'm not saying it didn't when it's by grace through faith, right? And they become sons of God, and they're all part of the family of God because of faith. So you got that dynamic there as well. But when we look at everything, those people had not suffered, even if they're part of the faith, they have not suffered like we have. They're not under the curses like we have. They don't have to be restored as a nation like we have to. And so, there's a balance here, some dynamic. And, I believe Israel should marry Israel. I'm not going to go so far as to say it's sin, because I think things have sort of changed, right, in terms of grace and faith, right, because we don't know who we are and, all of this stuff. And the seed has, gotten confused, and, and so we got all these children and they ain't marrying Gentiles, right? I don't know how that's going to work out, whether or not the Most High is going to fix that. But I do believe, just like with everything else, we say, well, we're supposed to keep the Sabbath, supposed to honor the feast days. Then it seems to me, the dietary laws, then seem to me we also are supposed to honor staying within Israel.
Wow, yeah, that's a tough one. It is a tough one, and to me, it's tough not just because of the differences, just in terms of appearance. Like, we can tell if somebody is from, just on a micro level, if somebody's from America versus somebody from the Caribbean and the UK, this micro cultures. But for me, it's difficult because someone commented earlier, just in terms of the direction that will happen with the children. Like, the mother has such an influence over the children, right? So the culture that she was raised in, she's going to 9 times out of 10 going to be raising the child in that culture. And when it comes to Hamitic culture, I do think that there's a lot of distinctions, and there's a lot of worship of different deities that the Most High, he constantly warned Yasharel about getting involved with women of other nations who look just like them because of that dynamic. So to speak to Second Exodus's point about, okay, well, if she as a Hamite is keeping, the culture, if she's keeping the word and following the commandments and having the attitude like Ruth had, that your people are my people and your Yah is my Yah, then I would choose her versus an African American who is of my bloodline but does not follow. It can be a very tricky thing. It can be, but we're going to have to see how the Most High, how he deals with all of these differences among us as a people, because I do think there's a lot of suffering. There's so much that we have in common with our collective oppression because of the color of our skin. But when it comes down to the roots of who we are by faith, that's where the water gets muddied. And I got to welcome my sisters to the panel. Welcome Sister Niazeki, as well as Sister Jonda Ash. Thank you so much for coming on and joining. Let me know your thoughts on this entire discussion. I know y'all been listening in. We'll start with Sister Niazeki. Go feel free and speak your piece. Sis, I don't see that you're muted. Are you having some issues with your mic? Try to unmute. Okay, I'm gonna let her, maybe you need to go out and come back in and authorize your microphone to be of use on the panel. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to Sister Jonda in the meantime. Welcome, sis. Are you muted? Uh-oh. Oh my goodness. My ladies, they're coming up here and then all of a sudden they can't speak. The microphone is against them. Ladies, oh man.
So one thing I want to add right quick, if you don't mind, Sister Shanda.
No, go right ahead.
I don't believe that we should mix, right? That's just me. That's my personal position. Okay. But I'm not going to say you sinning because I don't know. Because I believe there's a grace in there. And then you got the whole thing with Timothy and Paul and them. So I put a question there, but that's my position. I think Israel should stay with Israel. I'm not saying things may be sort of gray now. So
Right. I definitely understand your position on that. Okay, Niazeki, you want to try again?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can. Could you boot yourself out of the other one? I don't want to hit you twice by booting you out from the one that you couldn't be on. Okay, great. Okay, so welcome to the panel. Go ahead. Let me know your thoughts on everything that you're hearing tonight.
What I'm hearing tonight is I have to agree with Second Exodus because, well, most of you already know my story. I'm married to a Gentile white man. Married him before I realized who I was and when I came into this awakening. But for the unevenly yoked is that I know you already know my story, but for everybody else is that I came to knowing I was a Hebrew a year into my marriage and started freaking out because I was like, okay, I'm married to a white man. How am I going to explain this to him? I'm like, I might have to potentially divorce him. But at the end of the day, we've been together for 10 years, married for 8. He actually helped me get rid of all of our Christmas tree and all of our other pagan holidays. We haven't celebrated Passover yet, but he's actually going to help me cook the lamb and everything. We're going to celebrate Passover around the new moon. And he's still to this day the only family I have that believes me and even says like, hey, when it's time to flee, he's like, I'm running with you. If that means I got to leave my mom, my dad, and the rest of my family, he's like, so be it. He's like, I'm following your God.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. And I think your voice is so important in this conversation because, when we talk about this idea of divesting, right? It's usually surrounded and rooted around bitterness. But what's your story in terms of how you ended up getting married to your husband? I know you said it was before who you were. Did it have to do with any negative relational experiences with your own people, or was it just it was what it was?
I would say it was what it was. I kind of don't want to use divest because I didn't let any men be off the table. So I dated all races. Unfortunately, none of those were Black men, and I don't know the reason behind. Well, I probably kind of know the reason behind it because being around like my extended family, I kind of had like the same problem that Second Exodus did, which was I got told that I talk too white. And then also too, I'm very much into nerd culture. I'm into anime, science fiction. I love reading. I love writing. And I when I was a kid, my favorite channels were History Channel and Discovery Channel. So of course I was always made fun of by my extended family. And then like even some of the, when I was younger, some of the Black boys that would come over, Hebrew boys that would come over and be like, wait, you just want to watch like Shark Week or you want to watch Star Trek and all this other stuff? I'm like, or Dragon Ball Z, and I'm like, or Sailor Moon. I'm like, yes. I'm like, this is what I think is fun. And even up to before me and my husband, it was almost the same way. It's not like I took myself out of the picture with black men. It's just that, like, when they found out what my interests were, they were like, yeah, you seem like you're too white for me. And I'm like, wait, what is white? I don't understand this. I did so of course when I met my husband, I actually prayed for it. So I actually didn't date anyone for 5 years, and I worked on myself, and I got to the point where I still wasn't born again yet, but I was trying to find the Most High during that time. And I pretty much I ended up praying to him constantly each night. Like, I'm tired of being strong. I'm tired of having to defend myself or take care of myself or just rely on myself. And it doesn't seem like there's like any men out here that want me, no matter if they're like black, white, Hispanic, and da-da-da. They keep on just thinking I'm too much of a nerd. And as soon as I kept on doing that, I suddenly ran into my husband, who had absolutely like no red flags, accepted me for who I was. And there was like a time where we almost broke up because I was still trying to do that whole strong black woman persona. And I forgot what the fight was that we got into, but he walked off, and I just felt on my spirit, if he's like, you need to go after him right now, explain why you're like this, because if you don't do this right now, you're going to lose him. And I'm like, wait, what? So it's like I literally like ran after him, explained what happened, and he worked with me, and literally within 9 months of us dating, he proposed to me. So it took us 2 years to get married because we both were in the military and deployment reasons, but so yes, that's how our journey ended up. That's how I got there. I didn't feel like I divested. I just was open to whatever the Most High was going to provide, and that ended up being him. And I will say this, and before I land my helicopter, because I know I'm taking a long time on this, but I will say that for a long time during this awakening, I have felt that I have made the wrong decision, because everybody's like, oh, why did you marry a Gentile? Or we see in the comments of, no, you need to stay within the tribe. Why are you going outside the tribe? And I don't know how this happens. I think like the Most High somehow just knows when I end up needing an answer, because like sometimes I'll get like a little weak on my faith. I'll admit to it. I'm like, when it happens, like, did I really make the right decision? And I'll bring in scripture to finish this off with, but in Leviticus chapter 19 and 33, and I'm reading, what version is this one? I'm sorry, I'll get the version for you later in a minute. But so Leviticus chapter 19, verse 33. And when a stranger sojourns with you in your land, do not oppress him. Verse 34. Let the stranger who dwells among you be to you as a native among you, and you shall love him as yourself. For you were strangers in the land of Mizraim, so Egypt. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. And when I was having like really problems with my faith on like, okay, do I stay with my husband? And I prayed on it. I don't know how, but I went to Leviticus and I found this verse, and I was like, oh, he just gave me my answer. And I'll land right there.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm sure that there are a lot of sisters who could definitely understand the dynamics of where you're coming from, especially because you said, you were a lot different. If you had met my cousin at the time, that wouldn't have been an issue, because he's like Kami Khan, getting dressed up and going all them crazy things. I think all y'all are crazy, quite frankly. But nevertheless, I still love you, sis. I do. I just got to keep 100. No, I'm kidding. but look, you found who worked for you, who worked with you. And that, is who the Most High wanted you to be with. And it just happened to be that he was a Gentile and you didn't know who you were. So I don't think that the Most High wants you now to then go and say, okay, I'm not going to stay married to a man who does not share my bloodline, but this is the same man who is going to come with us when we leave. He understands who we are. So thank you for sharing your experience. Sister Jonda, can you hear me now? No? Not good yet? Okay, we're going to let you see if we can work that out. I'm going to go ahead and put this on. We're not going to be able to get to the whole video tonight, y'all, because the conversation is great, but we're already 2 hours in, so I'm going to play a little bit more. We'll talk a little bit more, and then we're going to give some final thoughts.
So what happens is when I say, someone is black and they say, well, I'm not black, I'm yellow, or she's pale, but she's still a black person, which is true. What I'm saying is if paleness is also black, then they will use that as an argument to envelope other races into blackness. I've seen people do it.
I think people got to do this. They got to understand that black is more symbolic than anything.
Right.
And the reason why I say that is because you got to understand the characteristics of black, how black deals with the sun, etc. How black and chlorophyll basically the same thing. How it attracts that energy, etc. How it uses that energy, utilizes that energy, and all the rest of these different things. And that's I think has a lot to do with why our people, not just the color, because there's some people that's black too. You know what I mean? And further back you go, and you look, the darker we were.
Black.
You know what I mean?
Right. Pure, rich, dark. Yeah.
But we are the way that our skin absorbs the light and utilizes for vitamins and etc. I think that it has a lot to do with the symbology as well.
And even behaviorally, or even with our abilities, you look around and you see what black people can do, even under the conditions that we're under, even with media attacks, even with other things that are in our communities that are destroying us. The things that we're able to do, you don't see other people doing it. Some of the things I like to point out is how we just create from scratch, how we come with different things or different moves, dance moves, whatever, and then other people can imitate those things, but it doesn't mean they originate them like we do, So there is something to blackness that makes it special, that makes it different, that isn't just related to skin tone. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's something to our blackness. That's why. That's just to bounce off of what he said when he said that blackness is symbolic. It symbolizes what Michael Jordan can do when he jumps up and does a 360 with his eyes closed behind the back dunk. And Dirk Nowitzki is not doing that. You know what I mean? It's just So I don't even when you look at other people as well. I don't know any Mexicans that can do that either. So these are things that blackness is capable of, and and it's so blackness is symbolic. It's not necessarily you have to look this specific way. You understand what I'm saying? But there are some things to blackness that obviously makes us recognize these statues as black statues.
Speaking of the statues, another thing that's a trait that distincts us from other ethnicities and whatnot is our art. Even in the condition we're in, if you just type in black love on the internet, there's tons of black love, black men, black women paintings. You can just the beauty, showing the beauty of us together. You know what I mean? And just like whatever it is, it was making love, or it's just at a dinner table, or it's just a hug, or it's on the basketball court, and black man, black woman, whatever. It's just very powerful that we still have been able to maintain that, even with all we've done. It doesn't even make any sense, really. If you think about it, after all that we've been through in this age of so much heavy propaganda and television, that we still are able to maintain some type of understanding, like, but I know.
And in a wholesome way, too. Look at that art. It's beautiful art. So,
Okay. All right, so let's get to the meat and potatoes of things, my brother.
You look directly at me.
Come on. Okay, so it sounds like you guys are very passionate about dating black women. So that actually brings me to the question of, have you guys ever dated outside your race? And if so, how does it compare to dating black women? Because you guys are very passionate about making sure that the black family stays together. So,
I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know?
I wouldn't know. I only dated black women.
Okay, all right.
Good brother.
Yes.
Had to represent.
All right. I'm assuming.
Not something I really like to get deep into.
Okay.
But I do. We was talking about propaganda, right? And quiet as kept. There seems to be some kind of like a twisted culture. It's kind of maybe a strong word, whatever, but where it's kind of like understood amongst black men when you grow up that you're supposed to like be with all types of different ethnicities. You're supposed to show.
Elaborate on that.
Well, it's kind of like, you the black man, you got to show, you know what I mean? You got to go out there, you know what I mean?
Like, so
put it down, go out there and show
everybody.
them. And go and show them that the black man is doing with the, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, you kind of like are kind of directed that way. And like as I grew up, I started begin to understand. I was like, hold on, like you begin to understand that I never really liked non-black women. I just kind of thought that was something I was supposed to be doing. And you had the television, you had all of that stuff pushing that on you. You know what I mean? It's kind of like there's so much emphasis on the black male, phallus that you begin to see that as your worth, like that's all I, what I'm saying? So I can do all the, different types of females, but, I look back now, it's kind of like, I just wish I never really was influenced by that. But at least I'm like glad I can talk to brothers who have or whatever. And I can be like, listen, man, it's a great chance that you don't even really want to do that, champ. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you most likely going down the road, there might be a small percentage of black people or non-black people who may like something other than their race, but never not like their own race. That's impossible. You know what I mean? But this thing we're seeing where all these brothers going out their way and this, that, and the third, or they're talking about, you know what I mean? But to a great extent, the collective of black people, like our natural mindset is to want to be with our own.
All right, I'm putting you brothers on the hot seat again. I'm putting you on the hot seat. Is this true what this brother said? Okay, we're going to start with Brother Floyd. Are you all raised as young brothers to go out there and to be involved with every type of woman so that you can let her know who the real man is?
Well, every household is different. Every family is different. So it wasn't heavily perpetuated in my family, but you can see evidence of it. And you almost felt it kind of from an indirect perspective that you were supposed to let it know, show your manhood. I guess I put it that way, but it really wasn't verbally represented to me. So I never carried that pressure. It was never something that was part of my growing up. So what I did as a young person, as a teenager, I did because I wanted to, not necessarily because I felt obligated to do that.
Now, you said what you did as a young person. Have you ever divested personally?
I wouldn't call it divested. I guess to have a relationship, if that's what you mean, to have a relationship. In high school, I had, I guess I would call them connections. I would, just be very plain. They were probably more physical than anything. I don't know that I knew what love was at that time. So to be very plain, it was probably just physical attraction, no more than anything else. And so from the standpoint of divesting, I could say no. It's because I still felt like, even from the time I was a young teenager growing up, that my ultimate union was going to be a Hebrew, Nubian, black woman, because they were so attractive to me, just so beautiful, and not just in the physical sense. So everything less than that was just short. And that's no disrespect to anyone else. I just am speaking out of what was the perfect fit for me.
Okay, beautiful.
I'm gonna go a little deeper. I'll go a little deeper.
Okay.
I'll go a little deeper. My mother was a single mother of 6 children. She was divorced twice. Her mission statement was, I'm raising these black boys to be good black men, to be good black husbands. My older brother and my younger brother both married white women. What happened?
Good question. What happened?
The mission statement didn't match the operational procedures over the course of the lives of the young men. You showed them the worst behavior of a black female in the presence of your young black men, which gave them a total lack of respect and even a disdain for black women. Now, in your maturity, you come into the understanding of the ignorance that you were raised in. Hey, And like I said before, when I divested, the accounts were all positive. Put it that way. When I stayed in line and I understand, okay, that was the wrong selection. Maybe I had the wrong example. Then pockets got ran. Where I am now, I've been sitting on the bench watching. And so where I am now, I'm not interested in looking for any type of relationship or involvement or entanglement until all my affairs are settled and I'm on the continent, because there's a whole different value system. And they're values that I definitely appreciate. There may be some quirky things, but as long as they don't, interrupt my future and my obedience to the Most High, I'm good. I've seen some fine, intelligent sisters on the continent, and they be spitting that stuff. I'm like, wow. See, that's what impresses me. But we've got a lot of, even like I said, going back to the Willie Lynch letter, we've got a lot of healing. We are psychologically jacked up, and it is in our DNA, and that comes out in our behavior. It comes out in our thought process and all that other stuff. So that's why the Most High is like, He's got to give us a new everything. I'm going to give you a new heart. I'm going to give you a new mind. He has to, because this has been so jacked up. And sister, I appreciate you making space for us, and even to have a conversation like this. And I appreciate the brothers being real. Um, I'm gonna say like this: the scripture makes it really clear when we get into the books of Nehemiah and Ezekiel and so forth. What's got to be done has got to be done. Yeah, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt a lot. But what do you want? What do you want? Do you want the passing pleasures of this life? Or do you want the glory of the life to come? See, the only way that that's achieved is through obedience. It's like, I don't need your sheep. I don't need your goats. I need your obedience.
Yeah.
That's the only way you can show me you love me. And so guess what? Sometimes love hurts. Be obedient. I understand. You got duped. You thought all that you only needed to be, the both of you needed to be Christian. And I understand. But guess what? I've been through this in my life. And guess what? It hurts. But it's mandatory.
You brought up a good point in terms of what we've been taught, a lot of us in the Christian church, and I want Brother Yacoba to speak to that in terms of was that an issue when you were growing? Because I know you said like you grew up in the Catholic Church, right? Like this whole idea of being involved with any nationality, as long as they were saved, but you said your wife was like, no, you're not saved, but as long as they're religious, right? Was that an issue when you were growing up? Thank you, Brother Don, also.
Well, a lot of people in New Orleans are Catholic. And so, you find out historically the slaves had to be Catholic. You had no other choice. And so, my wife's side has, they have some nuns. So, when I stopped being Catholic and became Baptist, I didn't like that, right? And so, it it played, I guess, a little discomfort. But people gonna do what they do. But when it comes to the whole religious thing, right? The scriptures talk about how don't marry the foreigners and the strangers because they'll turn your hearts away from me. But then again, you have scriptures that like Deuteronomy 23, 3-8 that talks about the Ammonites and how the Ammonites and the Moabites are excluded from the assembly because of what they did to us, right? So they were excluded for the assembly to the 10th generation. But then you had the Egyptians and the Edomites were excluded until the 3rd generation because of what they did to us. Now, my whole thing is, with the Caucasians, well, how many generations are they excluded, or is that no longer the case? Those type of things the Most High gonna have to deal with. But this whole thing of being a Christian, does that allow them to now be a part of Israel as part of the assembly? Maybe. I don't know. There's some complexities here, but I do know as well, if you look at just our relationship with the Gentiles, just all of them, not even just the white folks, there's a natural animosity, right? There's a natural hatred they have for us. They don't even know where it comes from. We call it white supremacy. Right. And I've seen it with people who are married to them, not to throw shade at anybody. Right. I'm just saying, I've seen where people who are married to a Caucasian and they get in an argument and the Caucasian call them the N-word. Right. And then next thing you know, you love me. See, and then we're the ones who always have to turn on the cheek and have to forgive and all this stuff. It's a complex situation. Like Brother Don said, we're messed up. We don't know who we are. We don't know what we're supposed to do. We don't know who we're supposed to marry. You know what I'm saying? We messed up folks. And it's just a matter of submitting to the Most High. Because, I couldn't guide nobody on anything concerning that. I say seek the Most High in anything you do.
Right. And it's not an easy conversation to navigate because there's so many layers to, you have to think that if all your life, you've been told that this is how you're supposed to do one thing, right? Like, okay, I'm gonna put it this way. In the Caribbean, when it comes to being with your own, that's something that we don't really have an issue with as much, right? It's like Black is beautiful. You see Black all day long. You just see, the essence of who we are as a people. Now things have began to shift because there have been other nations that have come to the islands, not just in the USVI, but especially in Jamaica. Y'all saw that Asian woman and talking about, Jamaica is not a Black island. It's a nation, an island of all nations, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like the removal of the beauty of Blackness. So, it's creeping in this era. But in America, it's always been that way. It's always been, you can't thrive. You can't be among your own people. So, if you try to be among your own people, then all of a sudden now you are, reverse racist. And it makes it difficult to be able to see the beauty in your own people when you've been taught from a young age, whether it's in a secular environment or religious environment, that you need to be with everybody but yourselves.
Yeah.
So,
can I add one thing right quick, Sister Shonda?
Absolutely.
So, when I was growing up, everything was Black. My friends were Black. My neighbors were Black. My school was Black. My church was Black. We went to parties, it was Black. We went to skate country, they were Black. It's not that way no more. There's no Black culture, no Black groups or anything anymore. It's always mixed. They're there with us, right? And so we don't have a culture no more. We don't have our Blackness anymore. And then when we say we want our Blackness in our culture, we're racist. That's why, like, for the white folks who say they want to keep their culture and their identity, I don't call them racist. I understand that. And you want your kids to look like you, I understand that. That don't mean you hate me because you want to keep your identity. You want your grandson and your grandchildren to look like you, right? And even in the scriptures, we have these dynamics where, Israel is supposed to stay with Israel. And we see it historically, Israel stayed within their own. People tried to say Israel went and mixed amongst the nations. But when you go read the historical documentation, no, they didn't. They stayed within their commune. That don't mean one or two didn't slip out. So
yeah, and that's key. And I think we have to own that though, right? Like we have to be able to say, and it's no shade to those who are, you know, in interracial relationships, but we have to be able to say, like, you know what, I want to be with my people. I want to raise my children with someone who looks like me, with somebody who experiences what I experience, with somebody who is of my bloodline. Of course, we want them to walk in the faith. Absolutely. We, you know, can two walk together unless they agree? No. But when it comes to this idea of embracing who we are as a people, I think we have to boldly do it because we're muzzled. We're muzzled from being able to do it. And this is what is adding to the trauma on a daily basis in our community because no other demographic of people are going to go through this. You're not going to see this among Asians. You're not going to see this among Europeans. You're not going to see this among Arabs. Nobody's going to tell them that if they marry outside of, if they don't marry outside of their nationality, that makes them racist. It's saved for us. And it's done that way because of who we are, because we are the people of the Most High. And being that we are of the bloodline, it's about muddying the waters of the bloodline. In my personal opinion, I believe it's muddying the waters of the bloodline because, hey, if someone, like they said before, if anybody's black, then no one's black, right? So I don't like that. I don't like that aspect. But I do believe that it's important at the same time, while we're owning who we are, that we deal with these psychological traumas that have kept us in disarray and disagreement with each other in dysfunctional homes that causes the enemy to be able to continue to put that in front of our faces and say, see, y'all get together and y'all do nothing but hate each other when you're together. So it's a big issue. And that's why we have to have these conversations. I'm so glad that we're having these conversations. Family, let me tell y'all something. Y'all know I love y'all. Y'all know I love y'all, right? But you know your sis is tired. So we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna go ahead.
Let me back on what you were saying though. Let me back on what you were saying. Okay.
This gonna be your this gonna be your final thought real quick, Brother Don. It's gonna be your final.
Absolutely. You know, Cassius Clay.
Oh my goodness. I was just talking about him.
Oh my goodness. Where blackbirds belong with blackbirds. And bluebirds belong with bluebirds. And red-breasted robins belong with red-breasted robins. Listen, the Most High pointed out, and not pointed out, but gave explicit commands about you shall not mix. If the Most High was explicit about mixing seeds and mixing different threads and things of that nature, how serious do you think he was about mixing the nations? I mean, we really don't have to go into that for you to look at the whole diatribe in scripture about how we're not supposed to mix and the consequences thereof. If he's, you know, going down to the minuteness of mixing different seeds, what do you think he thinks about you mixing your seed?
Good point.
Because, you know, it's like the end of the world is this, and your seed shall fight against her seed, and he shall bite your heel, but you shall bruise his head. We're talking about seeds. And so the seed that we're talking about in that chapter is the pure seed of the Most High Yah, which is the word that was made flesh. This is about a purity thing. And listen, This is not to shame anybody, but remember, everything that was written for our benefit or for our edification. And so, what's going to be required? You're going to have to put away the foreigner. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm. I hear you there. And it's interesting you brought up Cassius Clay, right? AKA, we all know Muhammad Ali. And we have, as a people, so much respect for him. But I was speaking to my mom earlier, and she was telling me how she was watching the movie. Now, obviously, I haven't read anything about his life, but she was saying that the thing that she saw with him was that when it came to our women, that at the drop of a dime, if he felt for any reason that he didn't want to be involved in a relationship anymore, that he would leave the women he was with. So he left his wife because she was scared about him in a fight that he was getting ready to fight. And she said, Don King doesn't really care about you. So he was upset. He said, you don't feel like I can win this fight? And he left. And he went on, and he said his eyes, wherever his eyes follow, there his heart goes. And I didn't know that about this man, right? Because oftentimes when we speak about, Brother Ali, we speak about him as somebody who's an advocate for our community. But this is why this conversation is so important, because you're leaving wounded souls behind when you say that you're advocating for our community, but at the same time, you're not willing to put that work in, like what Brother Floyd was talking about. You have to be willing to stick it in and put that work in and grow and continuously learn so that you are modeling that example rather than Papa was a Rolling Stone. And so we have to deal with that issue. I'm going to go ahead and let Brother Floyd say his final words. Thank you so much for coming on, my brother. What is your thoughts about this entire conversation, just in terms of how we can move forward? And what is it that we need to do as a people in order to get on the same page?
Sis, I would say thank you so much for just giving us all an opportunity to kind of share some things that we probably think about a lot, but don't get a chance to share with other people. So sharing it in a platform like this is a beautiful thing, just to hear and also to share, bouncing these thoughts off one another. So, again, we didn't get into this situation overnight, and we're not going to get out of it overnight. But what it takes is a turning. And I believe, obviously, that's what repentance is. And each and every person individually turning away from the things that have separated us from the Most High. And I think as we all begin to turn away from what separates us from Him, we'll all start walking towards Him, and the healing process will begin and continue, because it's really a matter of us leaving Him and being okay with being separated from Him. And the only way, and I oversimplify this, but the way to healing is to turn back to Him, because the damage started when we walked away from Him, when we disassociated ourselves from Him. The scriptures talk so loudly in Isaiah 1:3. He says, an ox knows his master, and the ass knows the ox knows his owner, the ass knows his crib, the master knows his crib, but my people don't know. They don't even consider. So we don't even think about the things that harm us, that destroy us. The lack of knowledge, the lack of understanding, the lack of desire or passion to know who we are. That bothered me from the time I was a kid, this whole thing about slavery. I never enjoyed watching movies like that, because obviously they objectified it, they monetized it, but they always showed us in a negative light, as if there was nothing else to us. So that kind of thing never sat well with me. So this whole idea of beginning to understand who we are has been the best thing by far that ever happened to me. And as hard as it was when I first figured it out, or first was exposed to it, it was really a healing and a deliverance, because so many things made sense. And I think for all of us who struggle with what does not make sense, we just have to turn to the stronghold. We have to go back to the square one, the landmark, because all of us are in the situations where we are because we have diverted, we have left, we've divested, we've went away. And so the healing starts and finishes with the return of His people to the covenant. And so It may sound oversimplified, but I really think in a manner of speaking, it is. The repentance, the turning back. And I think he'll heal. He said he'll heal our lands. And I think he knows what that means in every area of our life. He will do the work of healing as we turn and focus all of our attention back to him.
Thank you so much, Brother Floyd. I agree here. Thank you so much for your wisdom. And thank you also for coming on the panel. Absolutely. We need to have more of these discussions. We need to be able to speak freely with one another, and we need to repent and return back to him. Second Exodus. What are your final thoughts on this discussion tonight?
Oh, this was a great discussion. I'll be very quick because I got a date tomorrow early in the morning. Okay, so from what I understand is I think this is after 400 years. Our family is getting ready to heal them, be healed by the Most High. If it takes, segregation again, by the Gentiles getting scared, or they changing up the dollar, and it forces us to come together as a people closer together and depend on each other more. That may be a catalyst or something to kickstart our healing process of the family unit. Also, I think that more and more of our people on the continent of Africa and in the Caribbean, the West Indies and South America, they're starting to wake up to who they are as well. So that cultural dynamic is going to break down between Western ideas and knowing who they are as a people. And that could be another way of finding brothers and sisters to link up with and build family unit. And the last thing I want to mention was for those who are marrying Gentiles and other nations, hey, Moses did it.
Yeah, I guess he did, and Joseph as well, right?
Joseph did it. Yeah.
They're married to Hamites.
Hamites, exactly. And then even in the New Testament, Timothy's dad was a Greek, so he was a Gentile.
True.
So that's all I have to say.
You got to be careful though about giving passes. We got to be careful about giving passes. It's not about passes. Moses was before the law, okay? And the law is really explicit. And we see that in Nehemiah, we see it in Ezra. And what's got to be handled has got to be handled. And the Most High is going to handle that. That's not up to us.
Yeah,
I
agree.
Very jealous for his law. He's very jealous for his Torah. And that's all I wanted to say.
No, it's cool. I agree that when it comes to the issue of marrying outside of one's ethnicity, that we don't use that as a basis or criteria for the will of Yah, right? Like, so those are one-offs. Those are situations that happen and they're grafted in. They get the opportunity to come in. But his will ultimately, of course, is for his people to be with his people. So, the whole idea, I think, behind what Second Exodus is saying is we're not here to condemn our Hebrew brothers and sisters who happen to be married to Gentiles. That's not what we're here to do. And I think that, sometimes that it could feel that way. I have private conversations with several of, my family online that are married to Gentiles, and they kind of feel, like they're put out among Israel because of who they chose to marry before they knew who they were. So we have to be very careful about towing that line. And just remember that the Most High, he's the one who chose to wake us all up. So thank you so much, Second Exodus, for your words of wisdom as well, young man. And, blessings on your date tomorrow night. I'm going to give my sister Nia Zeki a chance to say her final words.
For me, I'll keep it brief. I was going to actually bring up what Second Exodus for Timothy's dad being a Gentile as well. And that was after the law was established. I'm not saying what his mom and his dad did for Timothy was the right way, or me being with my husband is the right way. But how I see it is, if I have been with him for 10 years and throughout this journey of my awakening, he has been supportive. He has been trying to follow the laws and commandments with me, because of course we're in Babylon. You can only do so much. He's thrown out the Christmas tree. He is going to do Passover with me. And even out of my family, he's the only one that's awake and is like, no, when it's time to flee America, we're fleeing. Because he was like, he even told me when he saw Jim Crow was coming back to Mississippi, he's like, if I got to stay behind and you got to leave without me, you do that. He's like, if it's my fate to stay here, I stay here. And as I told people, I prayed on it. And I'm going to just tell everybody, it was not a conference call. It was a one-on-one between me and the Father. And if he wanted me not to be with this man, I think it would already have ended. If it's been 10 years, I say it's just Yah's way, and we'll see what happens. Maybe, hopefully, we'll both be in the wilderness and we'll both make it at the end. So
there you go. One day at a time, sis. That's all we can do is one day at a time and let Yah work all of these kinks out. I mean, quite frankly, I have biracial nieces and nephews. My brothers are not married to Gentiles. They had children with Gentiles. And it's a tough thing to navigate, because when I think about how they're being raised, I know they're not being raised to receive the knowledge of self. They're being raised the way their mothers were raised. And so that makes it difficult to pour into them. But at the same time, your husband is embracing who we are as a people. And I'm very grateful for Gentiles who are serving the Most High Yahuwah. That is the goal, is for the nations to serve him. And they do so by observing how we serve him. So thank you so much for your final thoughts. And I'm going to give the final thoughts for Yakoba finally, and then I will share mine.
Yeah, so I agree with Brother Don, because what I think is going to happen, and it's theoretical, is that when we get back to the continent and back in our land and the laws being applied, those things are going to change, right? And, you know, when we look at 2 Timothy 3:16, it says all scripture is given by inspiration of Yah and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness. So if we were to use the law as a way to correct us or to instruct us in Yah's righteousness, it's going to be to not marry a Gentile. Now, we have grace, right? Because we are, enslaved, right? And because we didn't know, there's grace, there's mercy. But the law says what it says. And I don't think the law changes, right? Just because somebody's a Christian, right? Because here's the thing. I want a red rose, but you say you're going to give me a white rose mixed with a red rose. But I want either a red rose or I want a white rose. I didn't want a mixed rose, right? So, it's sort of like the Most High said, I would you be hot or would you be cold, but you lukewarm, I'm going to spit you out my mouth. So, the thing is, it is really, even when we get, have dogs, you want a Rottweiler, you don't want a mixed breed, right? And that's just the way it is, because that is what God made, right? And so I'm not saying anybody is sinning because they're mixed. I'm not saying they're any less because they're mixed. I'm saying that the law says what it says. And I think when we get back to the land, things are going to change. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but give grace to the Most High. And as Naya Zeki said, she sought the Most High, and that's what you do. You do what you believe he led you to do, right? But that's just my view of it. As I see, through this awakening, how we've all come back to following the law, statutes, and commandments, not to obtain salvation, but to live a righteous life. We see that none of that has changed. Right. I mean, sacrificial laws have changed, but, eat unclean food still unclean. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Murder still wrong. Worshiping other gods still wrong. The law is still there. They still apply. So, I think we in this process of coming back in line with the word and back in line with Yah's standard, he's going to correct it. And I think it's going to line up with his word. So that's all I got to say. And great sharing with you all.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on. And my final thoughts are that we as a people, we are a special people. We are a people that is separated from all the other nations, set apart for a reason. Even when those of us who don't know who we are, there is a uniqueness that comes with us. And I think that as the Most High is waking us up, that we're able to flow in the uniqueness that he created us to be in. And we should have no shame in doing so. We should flow in who he has created us to be together. Okay, together we are better. And when it comes to the togetherness, it's going to start in the home. It's going to start with our husbands loving their wives, our wives respecting our husbands. And it is something that we have to, as TCA would say, learn, unlearn, and relearn, because so many of us got dysfunctional messaging. Our brothers, I believe that it is highly important that you uplift and uphold our sisters as many chances that you get when you're on these, comment sections where the manosphere or whatever it is, and there's negativity towards your sisters. Use it as an opportunity to bring light to the sisters. Sisters, I believe you need to do the same when it comes to our brothers. I know that it's not easy for us to always see the best in each other, but we have to try to see the best of each other and represent that for the community so that we can change the narrative among us. There is definitely an agenda to break us up. And if we keep feeding into that agenda by amening the choir of bitterness, and I am guilty, but I have to understand that that is part of the problem. It's not part of the solution. We have to take our pain and our traumas and understand that we're all dealing with a measure of pain and trauma. We got to bring it before the Most High so that he can do the corrective work inside of our hearts. Because if we don't allow him to do the corrective work inside of our hearts, and we've learned nothing, we are literally walking after the same steps that our ancestors did that got them destroyed in the wilderness. So we have to make sure that we bring before him all of the things that have kept us divided and separated so that he can do the inner work and the inner healing. Now, we talked about the laws and the commandments tonight, and I just want to remind y'all, as I thank my panel so much for coming on, that this is a project that I'm working on, that I've been working on for my own family, called Yah's Big 10 Commands. And if you are interested in sharing the truth of Yahuwah's commands with your young people, then I definitely want you to take this as an investment opportunity into your family. So let me know in the comment section below if you're interested. I will have all the information pinned after this live is done. And that way I can gauge about how many I would need to order. But I want to thank every one of you again for attending, for listening, for offering your advice, offering your perspective. It is all needed. It is all necessary. We as a people must learn to grow together. Thank you so much, Sister Shetla, for your gift. For those of you who have given and will give, thank you also for your gifts. I appreciate you so, so much. And as always, family, you know what I say it now, and I'll say it continuously. Love yourselves without hating your enemies. And until next time, Yah bless and Salamah.